Part 83. Alien Relic Hunter. Author, Chen-Mi-san. Chapter 854. Fleet Zero has gradually withdrawn from the battlefield. Except for the air combat units of each ship that have suffered what can be called a devastating blow, the fleet itself has not suffered much damage, only one high-speed support ship and one light ship. The frigate crashed, and one heavy cruiser and 4 light frigates were severely damaged. Other than that, the other warships were basically still in good condition. In any case, Hound's order saved the lives of the entire Zero fleet and most of the people in the fleet. Although the commander and staff of the fleet were a little confused about this order, the captains of each ship, however, the middle and lower level officers and soldiers all breathed a sigh of relief. They all knew that if they continued to fight this mysterious Black Fleet, at least 80% of them, or even more, would have no chance. I saw the sun the next day. If they leave the battlefield without authorization, they are escaping from the battlefield, and all officers and soldiers on the ship will be held accountable, but now this situation can only be called retreat under orders. Even if the time comes to hold the officers and men accountable, the officers and men on the ships of Fleet Zero, including the commander, Major General Alexander, had to bear any responsibility. When the battleship of Fleet Zero sailed past Yagonactor, all the officers and soldiers near the portholes cast their sights on this behemoth. They must be grateful to the person who issued the retreat order. No one can truly be fearless of death. Even the most courageous warrior, if he suddenly hears the news that he does not have to die when he originally thought he was certain to die, he must be happy in his heart. The desire to survive is the most instinctive instinct of living things. Desire, only madmen and people with desperate hearts would want to die. But in addition to gratitude and luck, there is a third emotion that occupies the hearts of the officers and soldiers, and that is worry. Yagonactor is indeed very powerful. Even if the super battleship from an alien civilization does not have Fleet Zero as an escort, it can still operate unparalleled on this planet with its own performance. Note 1. But the problem is the manufacturer of the super battleship is an alien civilization rather than a human being. So far, human civilization is still at a very superficial stage of exploration of battleships. Rather than saying that this battleship is a weapon, it is better to say that it is a relic would be more appropriate. Can Yagonactor handle the attack of that Black Fleet? In the medical room of a certain battleship, an engineer with many burn marks on his uniform leaned against the window frame with a worried look on his face. He looked at the Black Fleet approaching Yagonactor from behind and said, "It should be fine, right?" Another engineer who was lying on the bed and being treated by medical staff said, "I heard that when this ancient warship was just discovered, it participated in a battle. At that time, the Muka base was close to we were about to be captured by the giant monster created by the heretic sect at one point, but as soon as Yagonactor joined the battlefield, the situation was instantly reversed. Be gentle, Auntie." The medical soldier who had just used tweezers to pull out the metal fragments from the injured engineer's arm glanced at the guy angrily, and then said in a cold voice, "Who did you call Aunt? Who else could it be? There are a bunch of big men here. As for you, Auntie, you are a woman." "Of course I called you," the injured engineer soldier continued, completely ignoring the murderous eyes of the medic and the frequent calls from his companions. As for the other injured people lying on the hospital bed, they all had expressions of gloating and winking at each other. The medical soldier did not answer the call, but gently pressed the disinfectant cotton ball dipped in alcohol on the wound of the injured engineer soldier, and then wiped it hard. "Ah!" The guy immediately let out a scream, and then said in a trembling tone, "Ah, Auntie, no, sister, I know I was wrong." "Ha ha ha ha!" The wounded around him suddenly laughed. Having just escaped from a desperate situation, the previously oppressive atmosphere among everyone had dissipated unconsciously, and several soldiers who usually had a more lively personality even started telling jokes. "If it hadn't been for another lesbians are here." It is estimated that the topic has already started to get salty and wet at this time. As for Yagonactor, these soldiers didn't care much about it, especially after being made such a fuss. No one thought about it. In their hearts, Yagonactor's strength can completely crush that mysterious black fleet, and they will not lose at all. What they were originally worried about was that in order to protect Yagonactor, the superiors banned Yagonactor from participating in the war and allowed Fleet Zero to act as a shield. But now that there has been an order from Yagonactor for Fleet Zero to evacuate, this situation will definitely not happen. After the flagship New Dawn of Fleet Zero retreated 5 kilometers behind Yagonactor, the Black Fleet's attack on Fleet Zero finally stopped completely. After watching Fleet Zero completely withdraw from the battle area, these pitch-black battleships spread out their formation, surrounding Yagonactor in a semi-surrounding manner. There was no announcement or initial probing attack. After completing the array, all the battleships of the Black Fleet fired a salvo, and countless barrages, lasers, and plasma balls overwhelmingly covered Yagonactor. Come down. Boom 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 boom. The deafening explosions were so deafening that Fleet Zero, which had withdrawn more than 10 kilometers away, could feel the strong shock wave. Several lightweight warships suddenly shook under the strong airflow, and everything inside the ship suddenly the man fell on his back, and the battleship where the injured engineer soldier was located was one of them. His wound was already being sutured, but when he was shaken like this, not only did the suturing fail, but the wound was torn even wider. As for others, it was not much better. After withdrawing from the combat area, Fleet Zero was downgraded from combat status to Level 1 combat readiness, and then downgraded to Level 2 combat readiness. The restraints originally used to fix the wounded in the hospital bed also the wounded were untied by themselves due to discomfort. In a flash, almost all the people lying on the bed fell to the floor. The most unlucky guy even got his eye pricked by a slipped needle. Damn, why is this shockwave so terrifying? The engineer whose uniform was scorched and the back of his hands was scratched was the first to get up from the ground. He immediately lay down on the porthole and looked into the combat airspace. Go. What happened? Oops, did Yagonactor use some super weapon? A wounded soldier limped to the window, supporting himself with one hand. He put his right leg on the engineer's shoulder with his other hand, leaned his head forward, and pressed it against the porthole glass. No. Yagonactor hasn't fought back yet. Damn, that Black Fleet showed mercy to us just now, the wounded soldier suddenly shouted after seeing the situation on the battlefield. Whether it is the density of the barrage or the output power of the cluster laser and plasma cannon, it has been improved by more than one level compared to the time when it just exchanged fire with the Zero Fleet. If the Black Fleet had used this offensive to deal with the Zero Fleet just now, it is absolutely impossible for Fleet Zero to withdraw from the battlefield with so many intact warships. If nothing else, at least the light frigate they were on must have crashed. These warships seem to be similar in appearance to several models currently in service on the Ark, but their firepower is several times stronger. This is simply not something that military-industrial companies can do at this stage, the engineer murmured. It must have used the technology of Alpha civilization. This fleet is a trump card hidden by the people above, the wounded soldier said confidently. The ace hidden from above, the engineer was stunned, but, didn't you say that this fleet is a rebel? Do you really think so? The wounded soldier gave him a strange look. Don't you think it's strange? From the beginning of the battle to now, Ark, which is so close to us, has not even sent a battleship to reinforce it. There is not even an aircraft used for communication. Do you still think that this Black Fleet emerged from some nook and cranny, rebels? Then what do you mean? The engineer's face turned pale, obviously thinking of something bad. If this force is a rebel, there is only one situation. That is, when they launch an attack on us, they have successfully suppressed Ark and all the troops guarding Ark, but the problem is, even if you put Alpha on it would be impossible for all the fleet forces to be together to achieve this. The wounded soldier's voice became even lower. Maybe, we are the one who is regarded as the rebels. Us? Rebels, the young engineer couldn't help but exclaimed, but, we didn't do anything at all. SHH, don't be so loud, the wounded soldier grabbed the engineer's arm and shook it hard. If you don't want to be taken away by the security bureau afterwards, then keep your mouth shut. This Black Fleet, obviously it's for this big guy. The wounded soldier pursed his lips at the Yagonactor that was undergoing saturation bombing in the distance, and continued, otherwise, they would not have issued that statement to us before the war started, and they would not have made any statements to us during the war. Hold on. When we retreated, they generously did not conduct any pursuit, not even a symbolic pursuit, but how did things discover later? Since we have withdrawn from the battlefield, this matter has nothing to do with us. Do you understand? I understand. The young engineer nodded, but it's nothing. We are soldiers, just obey the orders and that's it. Don't think about everything, the wounded soldier patted him on the shoulder. We should be lucky that the people on the big guys let us withdraw from the battlefield. Instead of fighting this Black Fleet until the entire army is annihilated. The young engineer glanced at Yagonactor in the distance again, his lips twitched, and he hesitated to speak. The second floor of Babel Tower. Kaylan looked at the projection screen where the Black Fleet began to attack Yagonactor with more intense firepower, and couldn't help but curled his lips. Zofia was right, they were indeed acting before, against Zero the action of the fleet was just a feint attack. I just don't know if Hound didn't issue an order for Fleet Zero to evacuate, whether their drama would have continued. It wouldn't really end until Fleet Zero was annihilated, right? The Black Fleet's firepower is fierce, but no matter whether it is physical shells, rockets, and missiles, or energy attacks such as lasers and high-temperature plasma, they can't break through Yagonactor's shield. Even the Black Fleets, even if the battleship imitated the Kirin in the Leviathan incident and rammed head-on, it probably wouldn't be able to cause any substantial damage to Yagonactor. The size of Yagonactor is so huge that even the flagship of the Black Fleet, the aircraft carrier battleship of unknown model, is like a small boat in front of it. The armor is made of pure nano alloy. Even if it is without an energy shield, it can withstand all attacks from the Black Fleet. But the Black Fleet did not give up. They were still bombarding Yagonactor's energy shield. Even if the battleship's main gun barrel overheated, engineering ships would immediately come up to repair or replace the gun. Guan's job. As for ammunition, in addition to the battleships, there are also 16 heavy transport ships behind the Black Fleet. If these transport ships are filled with spare ammunition, energy crystals, and weapon parts, an offensive of this level can even last for 3 days and 3 nights without stopping. But what is their purpose in doing this? Kaylan took a look at Yagonactor's energy reserves. Although Yagonactor's shield was indestructible, the consumption of energy was still staggering. The current consumption rate, if converted into energy crystals, was about the same. It's like a whole truckload of high-grade and high-quality crystals are being poured into the bottomless pit every second. When he thinks that Yagonactor soaked in the magma pool for so long to accumulate this little energy, Kaylan, I feel like my heart is bleeding. But just when he was about to turn off the energy shield and rely on Yagonactor's physical armor and hull structure to resist, he suddenly thought of something. He has figured out what the other party's purpose is. Their purpose is to consume the energy shield of Yagonactor. After the shield is exhausted or Kaylan takes the initiative to shut it down, the mass-produced fallen angels on standby in the air will immediately land to Yagonactor. Thor's deck. Although the Hounds and the others have closed the transmission channel, who can guarantee that this Black Fleet does not have the means to open the channel? Their purpose is to seize control of Yagonactor. P.S. Thanks to Zayaluyudrop and Pippi Singh for the 500 starting coins. PPS Note 1, explanation of the term that may seem a bit redundant, Open Wushuan. From the Wushuan series of games, the original meaning is to use a big move, invincible state, immune to damage control. Cutting down the minion NPC is like cutting grass, and later extended to mean that someone enters the state of being invincible, is often used to refer to a strong person or a loser whose combat power completely overwhelms others. Alien Relic Hunter. Author, and Chen-Mi San. Chapter 855. If it were a war of attrition, Yagonactor would not necessarily be at a disadvantage. Given that it had absorbed energy reserves for so many thousands of years in the magma pool, even if the undead crew would drain all the energy of the entire ark. Even if they are not used to supply this black fleet, it is impossible to break Yagonactor's energy shield. But being beaten so passively is not a situation that Kaylan wants to see. The key is that he doesn't know what kind of backup the undead crew will have. They obviously know that the Black Fleet cannot break Yagonactor's defense. Yes, in this case, why would you choose to do useless work? This is not like the behavior of the undead crew. Perhaps their real purpose is not necessarily to seize control of Yagonactor. Rather than wait for the undead crew to advance their plan step by step, Kaylan would rather choose to take the initiative. Anyway, it was almost time to break up with the undead crew. Although the officers and soldiers on this Black Fleet were only following orders, to ensure the safety of the hounds and others, Kaylan had no choice but to kill them. Looking at this fleet with the main color being black, he couldn't help but think of the black-clad troops that rushed in to spoil the situation in the second half of the raid on the Nova Chamber of Commerce, although it seemed a bit awkward to connect the two by just relying on color. Far-fetched, but at least one thing is certain. Whether it is the Black Fleet or the soldiers wearing black unmarked combat uniforms, they are forces that the undead crew will cultivate in secret. No one will know about them before they are put into use. Existing. Even Kuroa's archives don't have any information on these troops. It's time to fight back. Kaylan searched Yagonactor's weapons arsenal through neural connections. However, the situation in the weapons arsenal was exactly the same as the last time he browsed. All weapons that require energy are reserves. There is not enough energy to activate, while weapons that need to be prepared have zero ammunition remaining. Except for the bioorganic matter extractor that was used to kill the erosion seeds and heretical sect members last time, there are few remaining tools suitable for use as weapons. There are very few tools suitable for use as weapons. To use them, it would be better to hit a Yagonactor directly. Should we use the primary extractor again? Kaylan weighed in his mind. In principle, he didn't actually want to kill all the people on this Black Fleet. The best way to deal with it was to ensure that no one was injured as much as possible. Under such circumstances, the combat capabilities of these battleships will be abolished, but the effect of the bioorganic matter extractor is exactly the opposite. It is only effective on living organisms and will not cause any damage to the battleships. Even if Kaylan kills all the crew members of the Black Fleet, the Undead Crew Association should be able to continue to allow the Black Fleet to launch attacks through remote control. Kaylan is not the Holy Mother, and he will not show any mercy when he needs to kill people, but he is still resistant to meaningless killings, and even a little disgusted. These soldiers are all chess pieces on the chessboard, and Kaylan himself is also a chess piece, but they are pawns who can only rush forward blindly under orders and cannot look back, and Kaylan has already rushed to the bottom of the chessboard on the opposite side. In that column, Shen became an elite pawn. Note, ascension is one of the rules of chess. When the pawn reaches the bottom, he can choose to advance into any kind of chess piece except the king. But he is still a pawn. He is still a chess piece on the chessboard, and has not been able to jump out of the chessboard and become a chess player. There is another thing in the tool list, which seems to have extremely terrifying destructive power, the Celestial Rock Base Cutter. According to the description given by the battleship system, it is the kind that can cut the crust of a planet's surface. It is a tool that can be used to fuse fuel into neat and square pieces, but although this thing can be used, after using it, all the remaining energy of Yagonactor will be drained, and even the energy shield cannot be maintained. Went down. Tisk, looking at it this way, it seems that we really have no choice but to hit it. Just when Kaylan was about to let a Yagonactor move forward, Four mass-produced fallen angels equipped with large thrusters suddenly flew directly above Agunak Toll. These four mass-produced fallen angels are carrying a 20-meter square metal box together. There is an outer frame equipped with an anti-gravity device around the box, which keeps the metal box in a suspended state within the frame. And the four mass-produced fallen angels did not dare to increase the power of the thrusters to the extreme like they did when they broke into the Zero fleet. Instead, they kept the cargo as stable as possible. These four mass-produced fallen angels feel like they are carefully holding a bomb that will explode at any time, for fear of accidentally dropping it. However, with all the anti-aircraft weapons in Yagunakal in a disabled state, Kaylan could only watch helplessly as these four aircraft escorted what seemed to be a bomb to a distance from Yagunakal. The top of Thor's energy shield is less than a kilometer away. What could this be? A hydrogen bomb? No. The power of the hydrogen bomb is amazing, but compared with Yagunaktar's energy shield, it's still not enough, and the energy released when the hydrogen bomb explodes is not only indestructible, on the contrary, part of Yagunaktar's shield will be absorbed by Yagunaktar and turned into Yagunaktar's own energy. Kaylan murmured to himself, "Look, this thing is most likely found from the Alpha ruins. At worst, it is a secret weapon created using the technology of the Alpha civilization. Could it be an antimatter bomb?" Leighton, who had returned to Yagunaktar and was observing the outside world through the monitoring screen, suddenly came up with an idea. There are many abandoned death ray cannons on Alpha Planet, some of which there should be some antimatter stored inside the death ray cannon. If the undead crew can extract the antimatter and make it into a bomb, it can be regarded as a big killer weapon. Even the ancient behemoths like Leviathan hated the concentrated fire of the death ray cannon, and ordinary targets really couldn't withstand the attack of antimatter weapons. But the problem is, Yagunaktar is not a general target. The destructive power of antimatter mainly comes from annihilation, but for the convenience of understanding, Kaylan prefers to change annihilation to neutralization. Antimatter actually has mass, but this mass is a negative number. When it is matter, a neutralization phenomenon called annihilation will occur between the two, and in this process, extremely terrifying energy will be released. But this energy still cannot break the shield of Yagunaktar. When he first discovered Yagunaktar, Kaylan used mathematical models to make calculations, using various existing weapons and Yagunaktar. Thor's defensive power is relatively high, which naturally includes the death ray cannon that sank a battleship with one shot. However, the final conclusion is that the death ray cannon cannot penetrate the shield of Agunaktar, unless the Alpha civilization can increase the amount of antimatter released by a single shot of the death ray cannon by more than 120 times. But in that case, the difficulty of storing these cannonballs will be greatly increased. At this time, the death ray cannon should not be called the death ray cannon. It should be directly renamed the Star Destroyer cannon. This level of antimatter can never be placed in a cube box with a side length of 20 meters, unless high-level space technology was used in the manufacture of this box. But if it is really a box that uses space technology for storage, then these mass-produced fallen angels do not need to be so careful, and there is no need to add a floating frame for stability to the outside of the box. What exactly could it be? Kaylan did not continue to speak, and Leighton and others also fell silent. Everyone on the battlefield, including the commanders and crews of the Zero fleet that had left the battlefield, focused their attention on this mass-produced fallen angel. It was on top of a metal box that was very large, but so small that it was almost negligible to Yagunaktar. Finally, the four mass-produced fallen angels simultaneously turned off the anti-gravity devices on the outer frames. The metal box that lost its buoyancy suddenly fell downwards. During the fall, the outer shell of the metal box also began to disintegrate on its own, exposing the inside's things. It was a huge polygonal energy crystal, with a volume of more than 1,000 cubic meters. Judging from its color, it should be the highest grade energy crystal. Crystal energy bomb. Leighton in front of the screen was stunned for a moment, A crystal energy bomb of this mass and quality is indeed terrifying, but in terms of power, it is probably not as good as antimatter, right? No. It's not a crystal energy bomb, Kaylan objected immediately. Compared with the broadcast screen seen by Layton and others, Kaylan, who was directly connected to Yagonactor's nerves, could see it more clearly. He noticed that the interior of this giant energy crystal was filled with dense crystal circuit structures. The next second, the giant energy crystal exploded, and a circle of faint blue ripples rippled out. The energy shield covering Yagonactor flickered a few times and disappeared. What's going on? Hound and the others were shocked. This thing just blew up the shield. Kaylan was also surprised by the effect of this giant energy crystal, but he soon discovered that the disappearance of Yagonactor's energy shield was not because the shield generator was overloaded or because the energy was exhausted, but because the energy supply line of the shield generator was blocked by a mysterious force. Energy could not flow, and the shield could not be maintained. It's a jammer. This thing interfered with Yagonactor's shield generator. Kaylan immediately told the hounds and others about the situation. I don't know how long it will take for the shield generator to recover, and I don't know the other party. Is there a second jammer? Before the shield is restored, I will try my best to prevent the opponent from boarding the ship, but you must also be prepared for close combat with the enemy. Understood. Hound nodded vigorously, then turned to Layton and Zwilligitu and said, You two, the young master responsible for protecting the eldest lady and the Ye family, and the others, follow the special emergency regulations on the ship. Whether you are a combatant or not, follow me to the weapons depot to get equipment. Are we going to? Asked a relic hunter standing nearby. This relic hunter was an external employee from the Cooperative Exploration Project. Logically speaking, he was not obliged to participate in the battle. If you feel that if you tell the people in the Black Fleet that you are just ruin hunters and not combatants on this battleship, they will not fire on you, you can choose to give up resistance and I will not care about you, Hound. She glanced at him and said, But if you want to stab you in the back or fish in troubled waters, I don't mind cleaning you up first. As soon as he finished speaking, several military mechas surrounded these hunters. Although these hunters also carry weapons, they are all for self-defense. They have no ability to resist in front of these 6-meter military tactical mechas. Of course we choose to work with you, to resist those invaders. The ruins hunter who spoke at the beginning immediately responded, I think even if we surrender, they will probably kill us, rather than believe it. A group of unidentified guys, then I would rather believe you. After all, we have been cooperating for such a long time. In fact, he wanted to ask Hound how long it would take for support from Ark to arrive, but he held back because he was worried that Hound would directly order the mecha to fire in order to avoid further trouble. Fleet Zero has a chance to retreat, but these ruin hunters on Yagonactor do not. They are now grasshoppers on a rope with the hounds and others, and they themselves know this very well. Wise choice. The Hound nodded and ignored the pale guy. Noah's Ark, core area, secret room. The shield jammer was launched successfully. Yagonactor's shield energy flow has been blocked, and the airborne troops will have an 8-hour attack window, said a voice that sounded calm and emotionless. In 8 hours, how far do you think you can push Yagonactor, and him? Asked another voice. I don't think it's a problem with what he said. He values the friendship with those people, so he will definitely find ways to let those people survive, a third voice said, but Yagonactor's judgment mechanism is it's hard to say. If the core components are not threatened, that thing may not be activated. Let the airborne troops break into the power room of Yagonactor directly. The heart was pierced by a spear. I think this should be considered a major threat, right? This was the fourth voice in the darkness. What about the people he met during the raid? The second voice asked, especially those he cares about. If there is resistance, shoot without mercy. The fourth voice sounded very cold and stern. This is not good. We don't want to completely break up with him, at least, not on the surface. The second voice was worried. he will definitely understand in the future that the existence of these people can only be regarded as a burden to him. The fourth voice snorted coldly, emotions, especially the emotions between people, are the most useless things in the world. Thing. You are so heartless. A fifth voice suddenly appeared. This was a specially processed voice. The tone and timbre were very vague, but it could still be heard that it was the only female voice among the 5 voices. But have you ever thought about whether he would do something irrational if you angered him now? You know, he is in the Tower of Babel now. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Alien Relic Hunter. Author, Chen-Mi-san. Chapter 856. Kaylan tried to speed up Yagonakotaur, but it was too late. Taking advantage of the gap when the energy shield disappeared, 6 high-speed landing ships had already attached themselves to the top deck of Yagonakotaur. They just like a fish attached to the bottom of a big fish or ship. Kaylan could not get rid of it no matter how he turned the ship. Just when Kaylan thought that he could turn Yagonactor upside down and rely on the ground to rubber these landing ships away, these 6 landing ships had already completed their mission and flew away from Yagonactor. All 6 landing ships are equipped with transmission devices. The troops on standby in the ship can directly enter the interior of Yagonactor through the transmission device without leaving the cabin. During the entire transmission process, Yagonactor's own defense system failed to respond at all. This point is basically the same as Ian's previous guess. They cannot be stopped by simply closing the transmission channel. These troops that broke into the ship were directly teleported into Yagonactor's core power room without any obstruction. Leading the charge were 4 heavily equipped mass-produced fallen angels. In addition to its own energy shield, each machine also carried 3 additional shield generators, although the troops remaining on board the ship were surprised when they discovered the enemy. A saturation fire strike was launched immediately, but it still failed to break the defensive field formed by the 12 layers of energy shields, and still allowed the opponent to gain a firm foothold. These 4 heavily equipped mass-produced fallen angels are like a solid bridgehead, attracting most of the firepower of the troops stationed in Yagonactor, and behind them, the follow-up troops are continuously coming from the transmission channel. Gush out. Don't waste ammunition and energy on that damn shield, Hound roared upon seeing this. Tactical mecha unit. Outflank me from the side and cut into the opponent's wings. More than a dozen highly mobile tactical mechas equipped with air cushions on their feet rushed out immediately. They projected a series of thermal smoke bombs, creating a continuous smoke wall along their movement trajectory, mixed with extremely fine smoke bombs. The gray-white smoke of the metal wire covered almost half of the battlefield. In this smoke, most detection devices will lose their function, and all accurate guided weapons will become blind. When fighting in this environment, all you can rely on is your fighting instinct and your sense of danger and opportunity. The garrison troops deployed inside Yagonactor are all veterans with rich experience, and the pilots are pure ace. Although the heat smoke obscures all vision and detection equipment, these dozen or so there was actually no confusion in the formation of the tactical mecha. They drew 2 arc-shaped trajectories in the smoke and headed straight towards the flank of the invader. When these dozen tactical mechas attacked, they had already replaced their main weapons with large-caliber rapid-fire shotguns used by mechas. The 2 leading mechas chose physical shields and flamethrowers for combat. At the moment when Hound gave the order, the captain of this mecha squadron had already arranged his tactics, using the cover of thermal smoke grenades to crash directly into the intruders' formation. Taking advantage of the fact that the invaders have just come out of the transmission channel and have not yet set up a formation, they directly disperse them. If there is a chance, they will kill the invaders' formation from the side and rear, and defeat the 4 heavy-duty machines from behind. Fallen Angel. This is not the first time they have implemented this tactic. Before they were incorporated into the Yagonactor garrison, They often used this tactic to raid the communities of indigenous creatures and separate the herds that were originally gathered together. Come. Immediately afterwards, they first concentrated their forces to eat up the small group of targets that had been washed to pieces, and finally surrounded the large group and annihilated them. This tactic is not only useful against wild beasts, but also against intelligent enemies. After all, this tactic originally evolved from the wars between humans in the old era. Keep moving. Don't fall behind. Start accelerating in 15 seconds. Transform into a straight-line charge, the captain of the tactical mecha squadron shouted on the internal channel, although only the two machines closest to him could receive the order. But by relying on the team members to pass orders to each other, the entire squadron can keep up with the squadron leader who is leading the front. Suddenly, a ball of plasma shimmering with faint blue light tore through the gray-white smoke screen and accurately hit the machine that was following the squadron leader. That machine didn't even have a chance to open its energy shield. It turned directly into a blazing fireball. Of course, there is another possibility. The pilot has opened the body's shield at the critical moment, but the shield still cannot block the plasma cannon carrying huge energy. Unit number 2 is damaged. Second Lieutenant Zara is killed. Repeat. Unit number 2 is damaged and Second Lieutenant Zara is killed. The bad news was repeated over and over in the team's communication channel, which made the squadron leader feel a sense of unease for no reason. It was a wonderful feeling, but he knew very well that as a commander, he would never panic. If he messed up on the battlefield, the entire squadron would be destroyed. Don't panic. It's probably a stray bullet, Second Lieutenant Zara, he just has bad luck. Before he finished speaking, Unit 3, which had just rushed to take over, was blown up by a blast of plasma. Unit number 3 is destroyed. Bliss. Before the pilot of Unit number 4 could finish his words, his aircraft also exploded. After a brief explosion, the internal communication channel went silent for an instant. Come down. The squadron leader could barely convince himself that the first shot was a stray bullet, but the second and third shots could not be explained by luck. Spread out. Everyone spread out, the squadron leader said sternly, the opponent can see through the smoke. Disrupt the original formation, everyone, plan your own evasion route. Although the air conditioner was turned on in the cockpit and the temperature remained at a pleasant 24 degrees Celsius, fine beads of sweat oozed from the forehead of the squadron leader, and there was a sticky feeling in the palms of his hands. If it weren't for him still wearing gloves, I'm afraid even the joystick would slip now. His heart rate had soared to over 170, and the dazzling red warning icon kept flashing on the heads-up display. The squadron leader knew very well that his body was probably locked by the enemy. The reason why the enemy's priority target was not him who was at the head of the team was entirely because he was carrying a heavy physical shield. Even if he was hit by a plasma cannon, if it hits, there is a certain chance of escaping, and the destroyed number 2, 3, and 4 machines were all dual-wielded rapid-fire shotguns and did not carry any defensive equipment at all. The number 5 machine did not replenish its position in time, and the squadron leader himself did not know whether the number 5 machine was out of touch with him or had been killed by the enemy, but no matter which case it was, he had now become a line approaching the enemy line. Lone wolf. A lone wolf will be a lone wolf, anyway, there are worse situations, I have experienced it. The squadron leader gritted his teeth, threw away the flamethrower in his hand, and at the same time removed the fuel backpack from the back of the machine, since now that the opponent can clearly see his movement trajectory, there is no point in mid and short-range weapons like flamethrowers that are used to create chaos that are greater than actual lethality. A heavy fuel backpack will not only slow down the body, and once it is hit, it will directly ignite the entire body. The squadron leader pulled out the mecha fighting axe from his waist, held the shield in front of him with his left arm, and held the axe with his right arm ready to slash forward at any time. At this moment, an indescribable palpitation spread throughout his body like an electric shock. Before his brain even had time to think, under the influence of muscle memory, his arm had already pushed down the joystick and was about to lift the axe. The right arm of the machine waved forward. An armor-piercing sword that exuded dark red light and had a thick spine quietly cut through the smoke screen. It first cut off the fighting axe that was horizontally placed in the path of the blade, and then cut through the physical shield weighing several tons. And even the arm holding the shield was cut off. It's that kind of machine called Fallen Angel. The squadron leader sitting in the cockpit couldn't help but widen his eyes. Although like Yeager, he had never seen the mass-produced Fallen Angel in action at the Battle of the Ancient Copper City ruins. However, not long ago, Mr. Layton of the God Hunting Group had described the general performance and data of the stealth machine to everyone in the Mecha Force, as ace. They knew very well that the Fallen Angel, the performance gap between the Mecha and its own body has become so large that it cannot be made up by operating technology. What's more, the operating skills of mass-produced Fallen Angels with living CPUs are not necessarily worse than those of aces. The air cushion nozzles on his feet suddenly turned around, and the squadron leader's body suddenly retreated several meters. The Vulcan cannons installed on his wrists, chest, and head fired fiercely in the direction of the sword attack. The heavy rain of bullets that poured out disturbed the smoke screen, and the squadron leader did not see the effect of the hit, but he also knew in his heart that except for unprotected personnel and lightly armored targets, this 12.5mm caliber cannon could, facing the overwhelming majority of enemies, it can only play a containment role. The mass-produced Fallen Angel's armor contains more than 75% nano-alloy, and its strength can even be used to directly fire depleted uranium armor-piercing bullets. The Sly Fox Mecha Squadron is calling the headquarters. There are also Fallen Angels in the enemy's follow-up troops. And they have the ability to lock targets in the heat smoke. Please pay attention to the headquarters. The squadron leader did not care about the rear headquarters. Did he receive the message he sent? He shouted into the microphone while controlling the machine to retreat quickly. The smoke screen that was originally used to provide cover has now become an obstacle. The other party can see itself through the smoke, but you cannot see the other party. You are already at a huge disadvantage in terms of information alone, not to mention the performance of the machine. With such a mass-produced Fallen Angel standing in front of him, the squadron leader of the Sly Fox Squadron knew that it was impossible to break into the enemy's formation with his own machine. He could only merge with other machines in the squadron and rely on numbers. Only by besieging this Fallen Angel with their superiority can they have a chance of victory. Every aircraft in the Sly Fox Squadron, if you can hear me, the squadron leader continued to try to communicate with other aircraft. Note that from now on, it is forbidden to fire thermal smoke bombs. Those things cannot cover the enemy's eyes. But what the squadron leader didn't notice was that the mass-produced Fallen Angel that was still directly in front of him had already relied on its maneuverability far superior to his to move around the path of his retreat and hit the heavy destroyer. The armor sword thrust forward. Accompanied by the sound of metal being forcibly torn apart, the heavy armor-piercing sword penetrated the squadron leader's chest from back to front, where the cockpit was located. The squadron leader of the Sly Fox Squadron didn't even realize what happened. His whole body had been carbonized by the ultra-high temperature blade, and the remains of the corpse were directly mixed with the molten metal. The Sly Fox Squadron is completely destroyed. The first, second, and third lines of defense have been breached by the invaders. They are still advancing. A soldier rushed into the command room of the base and reported to the Hound. Road. You don't need to tell me. I'm watching, Hound shouted angrily. He placed his hands on the edge of the holographic sand table, and the shoulder blades on both sides protruded backward, making his already thin figure look even more rugged. Since the battle began, it seems that no good news has come back from the front. The ghost owl of the Grey Bird Hunting Group stood aside, frowning. Kaylan. Kaylan, can you hear my voice? Hound raised his head and shouted to the ceiling, doesn't this damn battleship have an internal defense system? No. Ian's voice rang in the Hound's ears, Alpha civilization has done something to this battleship, and basically all the weapons that can be dismantled have been dismantled. Just hold on a little longer, I'm thinking of a solution. Based on the current situation, we can hold on for another 15 minutes at most. If you don't think of a solution to the problem after 15 minutes, then don't think about it. You might as well think about how to collect the bodies for us, Hound said. How about we retreat to Block No. 1, Ghost Owl tried to suggest. During this period, the hunters have explored Block No. 1 to an extent. With the area of Block No. 1, we can completely trade space for time. Retreating there is enough for us to hold on for a few more hours. No, the Hound rejected Ghost Owl's proposal. We can't retreat. The core power room is our last line of defense. We absolutely can't give this place to those guys. Yes, retreating to Block 1 is indeed a good idea. It can let us live for a few more hours, but what's the point? We are dragging these guys to buy time for Kaylan, but if the control of Yagonactor is taken away by these guys, then the time you bought is useless. Can you try to blow up the console? Lighton said cruelly, since Kaylan obtained control through the console before. If the console is destroyed, even if these intruders occupy the core power room, you may not be able to control Yagonactor. Alien Relic Hunter. Author, Chen-Mi-San. Chapter 857. It's useless. Kaylan sighed. There are a total of 64 consoles in the entire core power room, and each console has an emergency protection mechanism and self-healing capabilities. Damn it, there's nothing you can do to face the enemies invading the ship. On the contrary, this broken console has so many doorways, and it's clear that it's a backdoor specially reserved for others. Is this broken battleship's surname Lu? The Hound couldn't help but curse loudly. Do you want to talk about the slaves with the third surname? Jolagito seemed to have heard this joke and answered. It doesn't matter whether he is a slave with 3 surnames or a slave with 3 surnames. Is there really nothing we can do? The Hound punched the table, and even the image of the holographic sand table was shaken and blurred for a few seconds. Now outside people are dying every second. The combat effectiveness of those invaders is superior to any special forces I know. Although I really don't want to say this, I still want to say it. We are not human beings at all. Your opponent, in 10 minutes at most, we won't be the ones standing here talking to you. If it doesn't work. Kaylan pondered for a moment and said, you can all retreat to Block 1. I think these people will not be able to seize control of Yagonactor so quickly. Kaylan is right, Layton also advised from the side. At first, he couldn't even gain control of that ghost prophet, and he had to rely on a substitute to trick Kaylan into being a sacrifice. In the end, Kaylan directly turned against the guest. Now that Kaylan is not here, it is good news. How do you know there is no second Kaylan among this group of intruders? The Hound rolled his eyes at him, then looked at the ghost owl standing not far away, and continued in a voice that only he and Layton could hear. If Kaylan is really a clone created by the Undead Crew, the Undead Crew Club must still have his genetic sequence. If necessary, they can clone the second, third. I don't know how many Kaylans come out. Even if most of these fake ones you can only live for a few minutes, but as long as there are enough, you can always win. Do you dare to bet on this probability? Just when Layton didn't know how to answer, Ian's voice sounded in the command room again, but his tone changed significantly. Hurry. Old dog, take everyone to Block 1. Get in, now, immediately, must be quick. The Hound, who had been with Kaylan for so long, immediately noticed the change in his tone and said loudly, what's wrong? Do you have any countermeasures? Yes. But I'm not sure whether this thing can distinguish between enemy and friendly targets, so it's safer for you to retreat to Block 1. Are you sure? You can't lie to us, right? Hound confirmed to Kaylan. There is no need for me to lie to you about this kind of thing. If I were to lie to you, you would only be able to stay in Block 1 for a few more hours, which is meaningless, Kaylan urged. Hurry up and get over. The sooner you evacuate, the fewer casualties you will have. Okay, I get it. The Hound stopped talking nonsense and directly slapped the all-call button on the console, shouting, "Everyone, take out all the heavy weapons and ammunition in your hands. There is no need to keep them. Wait until after this round of suppression strikes, release all drones and remote-controlled weapons, and then withdraw into Block 1 in order according to Plan C, and the Hunting God hunting group will be responsible for the rear. After arriving at Block 1, immediately take the vehicle at the exit of the transmission channel to Base 4. The route has been saved in the vehicle's navigation system in advance." After saying that, the Hound turned off the call channel and turned around. He said to Leighton, "You and Zwilligita will take the eldest lady to the first batch to evacuate. You will not be needed for the rest of the matter. It's better that you take Miss Soma away." Leighton patted the Hound on the shoulder. "Block 1 has been cleaned up and there is no threat. It's really a waste of combat power for you to send us on this mission." "That's right, stop talking nonsense and retreat quickly," Zwilligita also said. In the core area of the Grey Mist Forest, Babel Tower, 2nd floor. Kaylan watched the garrison troops who had withdrawn from the front line file into the transmission channel, while pondering the message Yagonactor had just sent to him. "It has been detected that the core module of this ship is threatened by intruders. It has been detected that conventional defense weapons cannot be activated normally. The current conditions have been met, Emergency Program 0 has been unlocked, and you have obtained the authority to activate it." This message appeared when the intruders broke through the 6th line of defense of the garrison. At that time, several mass-produced fallen angels in the lead happened to enter the final cordon 1 kilometer away from the core function array. The weapons equipped by these invaders can already directly hit the crystal pillars in the core energy supply array. For Yagonactor, it has truly reached a life and death moment. The most critical thing is that the invaders' purpose seemed to be to destroy the battleship rather than capture it. Otherwise, they would have tried their best to ensure the integrity of the battleship during the battle, but in fact, more than one plasma cannon passed through the supply base. The energy shield fell into the giant pit of the core energy supply array. The crystal pillars in the energy supply array are not protected by energy shields, otherwise they would not become food for lavacanthaphids. The number of crystal pillars that were blown to pieces and broken was at least double digits. As for the number of crystal pillars that were damaged by the explosion, there are even more crystal pillars affected. Even Yagonactor's flight system showed signs of instability. But it was precisely because of this that Yagonactor handed his real trump card into Ian's hands. Although Kaylan has already gained control of this battleship, in fact many functions of the battleship are always locked, such as this emergency procedure 0. Kaylan searched the entire information database of Yagonactor, but could not find any information related to it except the name. He was completely unable to determine what would happen after activating it. To be on the safe side, it's better to let the Hounds and others leave this place first. The retreat process went quite smoothly, just like when they faced Fleet 0 before. The invaders did not pursue the troops moving towards the transmission channel. Their goal seemed to be to occupy the supply base and console, and use all their forces to concentrate it on the front line directly in front. Although the garrison has released all drones, remote-controlled weapons and autonomous robots, the losses to the troops are still considerable. Even Leighton was blown off half of his mechanical prosthetic limbs and 2 legs, and was finally killed by Joe. Legito jumped into the transmission channel carrying it. This was thanks to the fact that the invaders did not pursue them, otherwise, none of the people responsible for the breakup would be able to evacuate from the supply base alive. The invaders quickly swarmed into the already empty supply base, but what surprised Kaylan was that not only did they have no intention of touching the console, they did not even touch the computers in the supply base, and those who had no time to take them away or destroyed documents and samples. These soldiers wearing black combat uniforms and black full-face helmets remained silent throughout the process. There was no officer among them, but everyone seemed to be very, knowing what he should do. The only sounds in the entire dilapidated supply base were the crackling of flames burning the broken walls and the tapping of combat boots on the ground. Kaylan quickly noticed the intentions of these soldiers. They were installing bombs in various places in the supply base, and seemed to intend to blow up the entire supply base directly. Blowing up an evacuated base, why is this? 33, who was looking at the video, asked puzzledly. Even if the undead crew will break up with us, they can't make trouble with the supply base, right? Those exploration records and the various precious samples brought out from Block 1 are all good things, but just like that, they all exploded. Although I don't understand what they are going to do. Kaylan shook his head, but I feel that we cannot let them continue. You got a way to stop these guys. Emergency Procedure 0, activate. Kaylan did not speak, but gave instructions to Yagonactor with his consciousness. At the same time, the core area of the Ark, the secret room. An abnormal energy reaction has been detected inside Yagonactor, and it is initially determined that the Emergency Procedure 0 has been activated, a mechanized voice said. Huh, have you been forced to this point to unlock it? I thought the entire core power supply array needed to be blown up before 0 could be activated. Another voice took a long breath. Everyone, should we celebrate that we are one step closer to success? Those who start celebrating so early will most likely end up defeated. This has always been the case in history, another voice criticized mercilessly. History? Humph, we are the creators of history. Why, do you even believe in that boring plot that only appears in movies and TV shows? I don't have time to argue with you. If you are free now, you should check the next action plan again. When you wake up, there will be no room for any mistakes in all steps. You can rest assured that everything has been arranged, we just need to dash. Before the voice finished speaking, the mechanized voice at the beginning suddenly exclaimed, and the tone was completely different from the emotionless tone before, but with a hint of panic, no. No. The one unlocked is black. The coffin, not the white coffin. What black coffin? The confident voice just now suddenly became a little anxious. Isn't the container used to store his semi-deified body the white coffin? Where did this black coffin come from? I don't know. The first voice murmured, judging from the frequency of energy fluctuations, the Emergency Procedure 0 has indeed been activated, but what was awakened was an item stored in the black coffin, things inside. Could it be a mistake? The white coffin was mistaken for the black coffin. No. That's right, it's the black coffin. Even the location is different, said the mechanized voice. The secret room fell into silence for several seconds, until a fourth voice sounded, what about the white coffin? Is there any movement? No. Only the things in the black coffin were awakened. What to do? Do we want to stop it? The mechanized voice asked. Stop it? Did you stop it? The voice that criticized the companion before sneered, don't forget how much we paid when we stole the white coffin and put it back. Inside Yagonactor, the core power room. The exit of a teleportation channel appeared above the supply base without warning. The next second, a coffin-like object that was 5 meters long, 1.5 meters wide and 1.5 meters high fell out of the teleportation channel and hit the ground heavily. On the square in the center of the supply base. This huge coffin is completely black, but unlike the blackness of the Black Fleet and the black-clad troops, the black on the surface of the coffin is not so much a color, but a visual effect similar to a black hole. Any light that shines on it will be swallowed up until nothing is left. The so-called pure black is probably this effect. The soldiers in black, who were as silent as robots, seemed to have received a certain order. They all put aside their work of installing bombs and gathered in the square. Even the mass-produced fallen angels who were originally on guard outside the base jumped over. Walls and buildings fell on one side of the square. The soldiers raised their guns and pointed the muzzles at the black coffin in the center of the square. But just when Kaylan was wondering why these soldiers did not pull the trigger for so long, A soldier at the head of the team suddenly turned into ashes, but his clothes and weapons were not affected in any way. The firearms that were not being held fell to the ground, and the clothes that lost their support collapsed softly. As for the body that turned to ashes, it seemed that it had been affected by some kind of force. Like a special gravity, it floated towards the black coffin that was smashed into the ground. The first soldier turned to ashes was like the first domino being pushed. In the blink of an eye, everyone in the square had followed in his footsteps, and all kinds of weapons fell to the ground. Occasionally there would be the sound of a fire, but it was no longer important. In this short second, there was no one alive in the entire supply base. Even the mass-produced Fallen Angel's living CPU did not escape this fate. The flying ashes passed through the Fallen Angel's solid armor and energy shield like a mold, and flew into the black without any hindrance. In the coffin, it merged with the pure black. I don't know how long it took, but a long breathing sounded from the black coffin, followed by a heartbeat like a drum beating. The lid of the black coffin slipped silently, and a young man who looked exactly like Kaylan slowly walked out of it. P.S. If I want to finish the story, I have to fill in all the holes I dug before. It's tiring. You can rest assured that today's chapter is definitely not a new hole dug, but one that was planned in the outline before. Content: Alien Relic Hunter. Author, Chenmi San. Chapter 858. What is this? The 33 eyes staring at the projection screen widened. Is it your copy? It should be something like a substitute for the Prophet, right? Kaylan whispered. I feel like I can control it. With a thought in Ian's mind, the young man who looked exactly like Kaylan in the picture raised his right hand and absorbed an assault rifle that had fallen on the ground into his palm. Is this space ability? After experiencing so many things that cannot be explained by common sense, 33 is no longer surprised no matter how bizarre the scene is. He turned back and glanced at Ze-Lugo. This guy seems to be your kind. No. Unexpectedly, Ze-Lugo shook his head, with a rare hint of fear on his originally expressionless face. That's not my kind. Huh? Seeing Ze-Lugo's expression, 33 was even more surprised than seeing Ian's copy walking out of the black coffin. You seem to be very, well, how to describe it? Well, are you afraid of this thing? Is he your natural enemy? Ze-Lugo still shook his head. I don't know. I just think he is very dangerous. 33, but Kaylan said that he can control this thing, so this thing should be considered on our side. No matter how dangerous it is, it should be the enemy who should be worried. The danger of him is that he is difficult to control. Although Kaylan is controlling him now, as long as he absorbs enough fragments of consciousness, he can awaken his own self-awareness and turn his back on the guest. Ze-Lugo spoke clearly and spoke clearly. It was also very smooth, and Sansan knew every word in the words, but when these words were connected together, he was a little confused. What? What about absorbing consciousness fragments? Turning against guests, 33 asked in confusion. You can think of him as a new artificial intelligence, and the soldiers killed by him are equivalent to the huge data flow on the internet. Artificial intelligence with self-learning ability can absorb, screen, and analyze large amounts of data. The data thus evolves to more advanced levels, and when the redundant data reaches a qualitative change point, artificial intelligence may give birth to its own individual consciousness, which is the omnic crisis often mentioned in science fiction works. Ze-Lugo explained. The first of the three philosophical questions is who am I, as a living organism with intelligence, whether a child learning to speak or an old man. This question will appear in his mind to a greater or lesser extent. There are many answers to this question: name, identity, occupation, status, species. These answers are all correct, but they are also one-sided. Because of this, this question has become a question for philosophers to delve into. An eternal problem for countless years. Of course, the content to be discussed at the moment is not philosophy. When an artificial intelligence is asked this question, its standard answer is probably its own model and software version, or the serial number of the core processing chip, but this is just a procedural Q\U0026A. But when an artificial intelligence starts to think about this problem without any inducement from the outside world, its creator should consider two options. Should we format this artificial intelligence before it fully awakens, or should we take huge risks and watch the birth of a brand new life form? I roughly understand. 33 said, what you mean is that this thing is still just a puppet, so Kaylan can easily manipulate him. But he will continue to absorb things from other people's brains, knowledge, memory, way of thinking, things like that, and then transform yourself from a puppet into a complete person with an independent personality, right? Almost. Then what does it mean to be a guest? Could it be that after this thing awakens its self-awareness, it can control Kaylan in turn? But Kaylan is not a puppet. Because he is much stronger than Kaylan, Ze Logo said. 33's eyes twitched and said, in other words, if this guy awakens, Kaylan will have no chance to resist. The moment he awakens, Kaylan and his self-consciousness will be absorbed and assimilated by him, just like what the God believed in by the Alpha people did to the Eclipse. Ze Logo paused for half a second and continued, moreover, this ending is unavoidable, because the consciousness connection between Kaylan and that body cannot be disconnected. When the power of the puppet is stronger than that of the puppeteer, the threads connecting the two become the ropes that the puppeteer uses to trap himself. Is there really no solution at all? Yes, destroying this body, but it will cause great trauma to Kayan's spirit, and he may directly turn into a fool. There is another way, which is to make Kaylan become more powerful than him before he awakens. Powerful. Arc, core area, secret room. Several voices that were originally calm and composed were already a little nervous at this time, and the confident voice before became even more furious. What's going on? What's going on? Everything is obviously going according to plan. In progress, which link did the problem occur? The most urgent task is to first figure out what came out of the black coffin. Another voice that had been pouring cold water on before said. At this time, he had no mood or time to taunt his companions. This plan was originally a risky move, and there was no room for mistakes. According to the original idea, as long as every step can be done accurately, even if it is a risky move, the final outcome will only be a near miss. Which was stored in the white coffin decades ago. His body will be awakened in a semi-divine state, and human civilization will also enter a new stage. But now, the development of things has been beyond the control of these people. It's like a train that derailed on the edge of a cliff and is falling towards the unknown abyss. I'll try to see if I can detect, said the mechanized voices, only halfway through his words before they stopped abruptly, followed by a short scream. Arc, core area, an unnamed room. In this room, there are a large number of mysterious equipment stacked up. Most of these equipment come from the relics of the Alpha civilization. Even the most knowledgeable professor in the institute can hardly name more than 1/10 of the equipment. And uses. These devices are connected to each other, and the crystals used as indicator lights flash with brilliant multicolored lights, and in the center of the room, there is a strange-shaped medical cabin with the hatch cover raised. On the side of the cabin, there is a series of inscriptions written in Alpha civilization characters, Coffin of Immortality Sequence, 9. In this medical cabin, there was a person lying, or rather, a monster that barely maintained a humanoid outline. Hundreds of tubes and lines are connected to the body of this humanoid monster. Even its head is filled with densely packed electrodes. These electrodes directly penetrate the scalp and skull, reaching deep into the brain. Deep. Suddenly, the crystal indicator lights of all the equipment in the room lit up with an extremely dazzling light, and then exploded one after another. The humanoid monster lying in the medical cabin sat up as if it had been electrocuted, with its mouth wide open. Like a silent cry. The next second, red gold flames spurted out from its eyes, and spread to the whole body in just half a second. After a while, the humanoid monster's body was burned to the ground, and not even a trace of residue was left. There is nothing left. But there were no signs of burning on the inner wall of the medical cabin. Even the pipelines and electrodes originally connected to the humanoid monster were intact. Even the blood stains originally stained on them were burned clean. It was as if what had just been lying in the medical cabin was just a realistic illusion simulated by holographic projection. Arc, core area, secret room. Just now, the news has been confirmed, the member of the ninth seat, Cronus the Hermit, has lost all signs of life. Cronus, the king of the Titans in ancient Greek mythology and the second-generation god-king of Olympus, counters the sequence 9 Hermit in the Major Arcana card, which means exploration and knowledge. Cronus is the one with the most severe erosion among the members of the undead crew, so he can only stay in the room specially designed for him and rely on the equipment excavated from the Alpha ruins to suppress the progress of the erosion. But while erosion takes away the body and soul of an individual creature, it also gives the individual a part of his power. Although it is only a very insignificant part, for humans, this power is already equivalent to a miracle. What Cronus gained was the ability to see. There are 128 eyes on his face, each eye corresponding to an ability related to seeing. His line of sight cannot be blocked by space and time to a certain extent. He can not only see the past, can even provide a glimpse into the future to some extent. But until everything happened before his death, he never saw through the fog that shrouded Kalan. Cronus had never told any other members of the undead crew about this matter. His code name is Hermit, and this room is a hermitage arranged for him by other members of the undead crew, but to put it nicely, it is a hermitage, and to put it worse, it is just a building. Prison. The coffin of eternal life is the shackles on his body, and the room full of equipment outside is the prison where he is held. In fact, only a small part of these devices are used to suppress the progress of erosion, and the vast majority are used to amplify his ability. In layman's terms, they are like telescopes and signal receivers. Other members of the undead crew have been squeezing his value, not just him, but every member of the undead crew is the same. They are both chess players and pawns, for that seemingly impossible goal. They sold their souls and made deals with the devil. No, to be precise, it should be a transaction with gods. But not everyone is willing. The seeds of hatred and resentment have taken root in his heart many years ago. He has been hiding one thing from other members of the undead crew. He has never clearly seen Kalan's past and future. From his perspective, Kalan is like a wormhole hidden in the corner of the universe, sucking in all the approaching light, making it impossible to observe at all. The chess piece was a variable, but he never mentioned it. Only Cronus knew that the so-called seamless plan was actually a joke from the beginning. But he was tired of it. After living for such a long time, he felt that it was time for everything to end. How could they do something that even the Alpha civilization couldn't accomplish? Rather than facing the end in despair, it is better to give up from the beginning. Cronus is dead, the angry voice turned into shock. Where is the surveillance video of that room? I've seen it, another voice answered. He was burned to death. Burned to death? How is that possible? There is no way there was a fire in that room. The fire that burned him to death was not the kind of fire you imagine. The second voice was silent for a few seconds, and then chanted in a pious tone, any blasphemer who tries to encroach on his territory will be punished. His sanction. Those who try to spy on God with mortal eyes will be blinded by God's fire. Those who try to describe God with earthly words will have God's arrows pierce his throat. Those who try to use contamination if mortal hands and feet touch God's sword will cut off his limbs. What is this? Asked the first voice. A prayer left by the Alpha people to praise the power and inviolable sanctity of the great God they believe in. Another voice replied, if I remember correctly, this stone tablet should be preserved. It's in cabinet number 94 on the 4th floor of the secret vault. You mean, Cronus was burned to death because he spied on something related to him? But it was just a body. Even if he had become a demigod, he would not have such power. Zeus. I know you already have the answer in your heart, but you just don't want to tell the answer, another voice said, while revealing the other person's true identity. The fourth seat of the immortal crew, King Zeus. Complete deification, impossible, this is absolutely impossible, Zeus shouted hysterically, you and I both know very well that it is just a body without a soul. A body without a soul cannot meet the conditions for complete deification. It can only be semi-deified at most, so we can safely put the white coffin. At this point, Zeus seemed to have remembered something, and suddenly stopped. After a few seconds, he muttered to himself, no, this is not the white coffin, the things inside are not the ones we put there originally. The body that went in. P.S. Thank God for the 100 starting coins as a reward. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Alien Relic Hunter, author, and Chen-Mi-san. Chapter 859. Is there no reply from the fool? The female voice, who had been silent all this time, said suddenly, the progress of the matter has completely deviated from the original plan. Logically speaking, he should be more anxious than us. I suddenly began to wonder, is the fool really awake? Said the voice that argued with Zeus before. Apollo, what do you mean? Zeus said coldly. You don't have to talk to me in such a questioning tone. Apollo's reply was equally cold. I just simply feel that the vote that belonged to the fool in the previous vote was not cast by him himself. Absolutely impossible. You know the basic structure of the core mastermind better than I do. No one can pretend to be the fool, and his authority is the most special, Zeus vetoed. Don't say it so harshly. Nothing is absolute, Apollo sighed. Afterota, what do you think? Among us, you should be the one who has spent the longest time with the fool. You know him better than any of us. The female voice that had been voice changed was none other than the lover Afterota, the sixth member of the immortal crew who brought Kaylan to contact the core mastermind. Have you ever thought that maybe this was part of the fool's plan? Afterota said softly, the fool has never really trusted us, in his eyes, we are just chess pieces. Pawns. Just do what you have to do, there's no need to know the whole plan. After she said these words, she went offline, and the holographic projection sitting in the corner, which could not even hide her voluptuous figure with a large cloak, gradually went out. There was silence in the secret room. Yagonactor, core power room. Joker, Kaylan said. What did you say? 33 looked at Kaylan with some confusion. Joker, I found that I have memories related to this body in my mind, but there is only one name, his name is Joker, Kaylan said. Joker? Does it mean clown? Or does it refer to the king of poker? 33 muttered, considering this guy's strength, I think the latter explanation is more likely. There is another explanation, Kaylan said in a deep voice. Sequence 0 corresponds to the first card of the major arcana, the Fool, which symbolizes the beginning of everything, but it can also be the major arcana. The last card, at this time it will change from 0 to 22, symbolizing the end of everything. Fool? That's not the Zeroth seat of the Immortal Crew Club. 33 opened his mouth in surprise. You mean, this body is the Zeroth seat? But you didn't mean that he was once in the voting meeting. Have you ever voted? But he never showed up, or even said a word. Kaylan shook his head. In fact, you don't have to be present in person to vote. You just need to make settings in advance, and the rest will be handed over to you. Just give it to the core mastermind. Then if this body is really the fool himself, what are you going to do with it? Also, why does he look exactly like you? 33 looked at Joker in the holographic image. He looked at Kaylan again and asked. Maybe there is a part of him in my genetic sequence. As for how to deal with this body, let's solve the current problem first. As soon as Kaylan finished speaking, Joker had already disappeared. The holographic projection lens also switched from inside Yagonactor's ship to outside the ship. The disappeared Joker was seen floating directly above Yagonactor, facing the semi-surrounded Black Fleet. Quite a kind of momentum of even if there are thousands of people, I will go. However, he just raised his right arm, and the warships of the Black Fleet fell to the ground one after another, as if being slapped down by an invisible big hand. With just one strike, the entire Black Fleet was wiped out. Ze-Logo, can you tell what kind of ability this is? 33 said in astonishment. Even with your space ability, it's impossible to take down an entire fleet from the air, right? I can't do it, Ze-Logo said truthfully, but I don't think it's a space ability. I can't see the changes in space. It's gravity, Kaylan said. This body has the ability to control gravity. I just increased the gravity exerted on the Black Fleet battleship by 1,000 times. Naturally, the buoyancy provided by the battleship engine cannot support 1,000 times their own weight. It is gravity that pulls these warships down from the sky. 1,000 times gravity. 33 took a breath of cold air. Are there any restrictions on this ability? How many times the gravity can be applied at most? Can it be applied to any target? I don't know, my control of this body is not precise enough. Just now I was just thinking about destroying this fleet in my mind, and he has already responded on his own. Kaylan shook his head. Does he have the ability to think for himself, or is it just instinct? 33 frowned. You must have heard what Ze-Logo said just now, right? Although this thing has terrifying power, it is also very hot. Yam, not to mention that he is now related to the fool of the undead crew. But we must now rely on his power to help Lao Go and the others out of danger. Kaylan turned to say, Old Go, the threat outside has been lifted. I will temporarily hand over control of Yagonactor. For you and Leighton, you two drive the battleship to the edge of the grey mist forest. Ian's words were not said on the public channel within Yagonactor as before, but a private chat that only a few people such as Hound and Leighton could hear. Are you determined to break up with Ark? Hound said calmly. He lowered his voice as low as possible so that even Leighton standing next to him couldn't hear it. But Kaylan, who is in a neural connection state with Yagonactor, can definitely hear it. The situation is very complicated. In short, if you continue to stay there now, you will inevitably have a direct conflict with Ark. I cannot let you become the hostage of the undead crew. Even if you want to negotiate with them, it must be on an equal basis. We can only talk under certain conditions. Kaylan explained. Okay, I understand, the Hound responded, then glanced at the hunters and soldiers garrisoning in the distance from the corner of his eye, and asked, what should we do with these people? Previously, these ruin hunters and garrison officers and soldiers regarded the Black Fleet as an unidentified intruder, so they stood on the same front as the Hounds, but now if they are told to drive Yagonactor away, this is tantamount to Hounds can't guarantee how these people will react when they directly announce their betrayal of Ark. Whether it is out of loyalty to the Ark or self-preservation, these soldiers and relic hunters must not be willing to become exiles. Even if those men in black were killing them just now, but just because of this one point would require them to completely break with Ark and mainstream human society, which is probably impossible. Even if these people are willing to leave with Yagonactor due to a combination of various factors, including but not limited to persuasion, coercion, and force, things will definitely change in the future. The garrison troops, relic hunters, and logistics staff on Yagonactor, plus people sent by various cooperative consortiums for the exploration project, add up to at least 20,000 to 30,000 people. Among them, there must be the Security Bureau, and even the undead crew will directly insert the secret agents. It will be too difficult to manage the 2 to 30,000 people with only the Hounds and the others. Even with the absolute force of suppression like Yagonactor, it would not work. Since ancient times, it has not been difficult to occupy a city through war, but the security war after occupying the city is the real test for the occupier. In ancient times, The Mongol Empire's expedition to Europe could be described as a massacre of thousands of miles. The reason why the Mongolian cavalry chose to massacre the city was to reward the soldiers and plunder wealth, but the main reason was to protect the supply lines and supplies for their expedition. The stability of the rear during combat. The current situation of Yagonactor is very similar to that of the expedition. The lone ship is running away, and supplies are a big problem. Almost all of Yagonactor's supplies come from the Ark, and a transport fleet will arrive every 3 days. A large amount of supplies were transported from the Ark to Yagonactor. If the supply was cut off, the supplies on Yagonactor would not last more than a week. In short, the hounds can't manage the 2 to 30,000 people, and they can't feed the 2 to 30,000 people either. What's more, if Yagonactor is allowed to sail away from the anchorage, it is likely to be pursued by the undead crew. By then, we can't rely on these people to fight against the Ark's troops, right? We can't kill all these people, right? Zwilajito whispered. As a descendant of Mongolians, he immediately thought of the things his ancestors had done back then. If it doesn't work, find a place to put these people down, leave them with some supplies and some beacons. I wonder if the undead crew will do anything to these people. At most, they will take them back for investigation and interrogation. Hound suggested, like the previous Zero Fleet, after withdrawing from the combat airspace, didn't the Black Fleet not pursue it? Well, then I'll do as you say, but I have to wait until it's safe before putting the people down. As for now. Kaylan thought for a while, and then said, you guys, go back to the core power room first and put the others down. They all stay in Block 1. In order to prevent any accidents from happening, after you leave, I will immediately close the passage between the core power room and Block 1, and put these 20,000 people under house arrest inside Block 1. Okay, Hound nodded. There are a total of 11 forward exploration bases in Block 1. Although the supplies stored in each base are not large, when collected together, it is still enough for 25,000 people. Weeks worth of consumption. Without further ado, take action while the immortal crew is still silent. Outside the combat airspace, Fleet 0. The actual commander of Fleet 0, Rear Admiral Alexander, looked at the Black Fleet that was single-handedly solved by the figure floating in the air, and couldn't close his mouth for a long time. Not only him, but the expressions of the crew members on the bridge of the New Dawn were also wonderful. This kind of power has exceeded the limits of human beings in their imagination, and can only appear in novels or movies. Such a thing. That thing suspended in the air is not a human, it's a god. Zoom the camera. It took a full 20 seconds after the Black Fleet was destroyed before Major General Alexander came to his senses and ordered. As for which camera was being zoomed in, there was no need for him to elaborate. The body of a young man wrapped in a linen robe appeared on the big screen. Just when Major General Alexander felt that the back seemed familiar, the young man seemed to feel the prying eyes from the New Dawn and turned his head to a glance in this direction. With just one glance, all the external monitors on the New Dawn exploded, and the screen suddenly turned into a black and white snowflake. Major General Alexander felt as if his heartbeat had missed a beat, and he sat down on his seat, breathing heavily. The moment the young man turned his head, he saw half of the other person's face. That seems to be Kaylan. Major General Alexander knows that Kaylan has a very powerful ability, but although that ability is powerful, it is at least within the scope of normal thinking can understand, if nothing else, at least when dealing with the underground stronghold of the heretical sect. He also needs to use the firepower of Fleet 0. But now, he just raised his hand and directly destroyed the mysterious Black Fleet that had been suppressing Fleet 0. This can no longer be regarded as ability. It should be called divine power. Major General Alexander is an atheist. He scorns the religions of the old era, and does not believe that the great God believed in by the Alpha civilization really exists. In his view, the so-called gods are just some kind of powerful creatures. or a civilization with highly developed technology, but just now, he suddenly felt that he was wrong. If there really is a creature that can do such a thing, then there is nothing wrong with calling it a god, right? At this moment, the screen in front of Alexander suddenly lit up, and in a secret communication channel that only he had permission to view, there was suddenly an additional message. This is a direct message from the undead crew. Generally, this communication channel will only be activated when the situation is extremely urgent. Of course, Major General Alexander fully agrees that this is a very urgent situation. He tried to calm down, then stretched out his fingers that were still shaking just now and clicked on the message. But the next second, his fingers started to tremble again. The content of the message is very short, only one line. The mutiny of Yagonactor is confirmed. It is expected that the ship will escape from the airspace soon, and it will be immediately included in the hostile target sequence and a pursuit operation will be launched. Alien Relic Hunter. Author, Chenmi-san. Chapter 860. Are you kidding? Major General Alexander's face twitched violently several times, and his fingers hovering on the touch screen hesitated for a long time, but still did not click on the confirm button. That's a god, attacking the gods with a mortal army. Even if he described this stupid behavior as hitting an egg against a stone, Major General Alexander felt that it was a kind of blasphemy against the gods. In front of that seemingly frail figure, he, an experienced general, could not muster the courage to fight against it. That deep sense of powerlessness and despair was like tens of thousands of meters high. The cliffs collapsed in front of you, huge rocks smashed down on your head, and the entire land was instantly submerged. You can't stop it, and you can't escape. For soldiers, death is not scary. What is scary is that before death comes, nothing can be done, or, nothing can be done. An unknown, humanoid creature appeared on the battlefield. Major General Alexander replied with trembling fingers. He originally wanted to use the title God, but after thinking about it, he replaced it with humanoid creature. These 4 words, he was very powerful and destroyed the Black Fleet instantly in an incomprehensible way. Even if Fleet 0 pursues Yagonactor, I am afraid it will face the same fate as the Black Fleet ending. Major General Alexander really wanted to ask about the origin of the Black Fleet, but he also knew that now was not the time. In fact, he already had the answer in his mind, but this answer had not yet been confirmed by the official. However, considering that the Black Fleet did not cause too serious trauma to Fleet 0, Alexander will not have much hatred for the undead crew, but without hatred, it does not mean that he will readily accept this and die. There are no different tasks. Fleet 0 cannot complete this mission. I can't let the officers and soldiers carry it out. Major General Alexander hesitated and changed the death mission to impossible mission. I can't let the officers and soldiers carry out a mission, an impossible task, that is irresponsible. He was just halfway through typing the sentence, and before he even sent it, a new message came from the other side: you are not responsible for the results of the mission. This is an order from the Undead Crew Association, execute it. Obviously, the control system of the New Dawn is under the supervision of the Immortal Crew Association. Not to mention the words written by Major General Alexander on the screen, even every subtle movement of everyone on the bridge, they all can see clearly. But, Major General Alexander took a breath and murmured, as long as that person exists, there is no way we can stop Yagonactor. After saying these words, Major General Alexander found that his heart was beating rapidly. This was the first time that he had been so brave and dared to question and resist the orders from the Undead Crew Association over and over again. Perhaps it was because the miracle he had just witnessed shocked him so much that his awe for the Undead Crew Association became much weaker. He thought so. After all, even the omnipotent Immortal Crew Association cannot do such a thing. With a single move, an extremely powerful fleet can be destroyed in an instant. Any normal person would not be able to do that after seeing such a thing. After that, there will be some doubts about the understanding of the world. That ability cannot be activated continuously. Now is the only chance for Fleet Zero. The recovery of the Undead Crew Association was very tough. If you refuse to execute the order, we will directly transfer the control authority of Fleet Zero. He had no right to refuse at all. Major General Alexander showed a sad smile, bit his back molar forcefully, and then reluctantly pressed the confirm button that had been beating for nearly 2 minutes. Understood. Fleet Zero will immediately carry out the mission of pursuing and intercepting Yagonactor. Very good. Communication is interrupted. The external monitors of the New Dawn are still undergoing emergency repairs. Rear Admiral Alexander can only look in the direction of Yagonactor through the portholes of the bridge. Even if the undead crew members are not lying to themselves, that kind of thing is comparable to that of a god. G's ability can only be used once in a short period of time, but even without that person, can Fleet Zero really stop Yagonactor? Tower of Babel, 2nd floor. Seeing the huge hull of Yagonactor slowly turning, Kaylan couldn't help but let out a long sigh. He originally thought that it was absolutely impossible for him to become the second prophet, but he did not expect that he would eventually reach this point. Perhaps the prophet chose to betray the Ark and escape to the wilderness just to protect himself, but later, as he learned more and more things, his thoughts naturally changed. Of course, it is impossible to wash away the things done by the prophet and the heretical sect, but Kaylan obviously will no longer believe in the undead crew. At least for now, it seems that if the so-called plan of the undead crew continues, human civilization will not only be unable to survive for a long time, but will instead step on the accelerator and drive at full speed towards the end of destruction. Perhaps, he should use the power of Joker to have a good talk with the undead crew, talk on a truly equal footing, instead of having a meaningless vote. He at least needs to know how much sanity and humanity the chess players sitting around the chessboard still have. Yagonactor, Core Power Room. Left full rudder, steering completed. Standing in front of the console, Layton was holding a rudder simulated by holographic projection. Although he only controlled Yagonactor through physical means, there is no direct neural connection with this ancient battleship, but as long as it comes into contact with the console, the information flow will involuntarily penetrate into the brain of the contactee. Just turning in one direction, Layton felt that his head hurt so much it felt like it was about to burst. Enter the predetermined coordinates, the southwest boundary of the Grey Mist Forest, N37.63, E81.95, Yagonactor, advance 2. Layton originally thought that Yagonactor's engine would accelerate instantly, and was even ready to resist the G-force, but the battleship only trembled, not like an arrow leaving the string as he imagined. Launched. What's going on? Is there insufficient energy, or is there something wrong with the engine system? Layton asked Kaylan. Although Kaylan handed over control to him, the detailed status of Yagonactor was still only Kaylan can see it himself. Of course, even if Kaylan wanted to open this kind of authority to others, others would not be able to withstand the huge amount of information that poured into their heads after the neural connection. Even when Kaylan connected with Yagonactor for the first time, self-awareness almost collapsed. In the face of that overwhelming information impact, even normal thinking became extremely difficult. No, except for the energy shield generator, Yagonactor's condition is normal, Kaylan replied. There is a problem with the surrounding environment. The surrounding environment? Layton was stunned for a moment. What do you mean? Space Anchor Ze Logo's voice appeared in Layton's ears. The space around Yagonactor has been locked, as if it was anchored in place. If this space is not, if the anchor is untied, even if the engine output is doubled, there will be no escape. Space Anchor, why do I feel like I've heard this thing before? Just as the Hound was talking to himself, Layton, who was controlling Yagonactor, turned pale and his breathing became heavy. Many. What's wrong, big guy? Looking at you like this, do you know about this thing? Hound glanced at Layton and asked. Of course I know. This is the technological product of Alpha civilization that was unearthed from the S-class ruins of No 001 50 years ago. Its main function is to solidify space, but there are only 4 items in total. Whether it is starting, it's very difficult to close or transfer, and I didn't expect the guys from the undead crew to even use this thing. Damn, when you said that, I remembered it. Hound patted his forehead hard. Space Anchor is the official name given to this device by the Institute, but among the people, there is another name for this thing. A more resounding nickname is called Dingai Shenzhen. This nickname is so famous that many people only know Dingai Shenzhen and have no idea about the official scientific name of Space Anchor. Although the title Space Anchor is used in official documents, this kind of document also it is not something that ordinary residents of the Ark can see. Even hounds with military backgrounds would find it difficult to come into contact with such things. However, most people, including ordinary people on the Ark, know the existence of the Dingai Shenzhen. The Ark is so huge in size and its mass is extremely amazing. If an object of this mass were parked directly on the surface of the planet, it would definitely sink deep into the ground under the action of gravity. Not only that, the frame structure of the Ark would also become extremely fragile under the huge weight, and even it is possible for it to collapse directly under its own weight without receiving any external attack. Even in the preparation stage for landing, the advance team sent by Ark had collected a large number of anti-gravity devices and installed them on the Ark in advance. However, according to the calculation results, the gravity that the anti-gravity devices could offset was still not enough to keep Ark on the ground. Conditions for landing on the Alpha Star surface. If the Ark can only stay in the low Earth orbit of Alpha Star, then whether it is mining and transporting resources on the planet, or dispatching various personnel to various parts of the planet, vehicles with the ability to break through the atmosphere must be used. Very perhaps sending a batch of resources to the Ark would require consuming energy worth several times the value of the items being transported. This is obviously a very uneconomical deal. This problem was not solved until the 4 sea-fixing needles were discovered. The 4 sea-fixing needles are arranged at the core of the structure in the 4 regions of the Ark, southeast, northwest, and through space solidification to ensure that the main stress-bearing structure of the Ark will not be crushed by gravity. For the Ark and the people living on the Ark, the functions of these 4 space anchors are exactly the same as the Dingai Shenzhen in Chinese mythology. However, during the Alexander incident, the main body of the Ark was severely damaged, and one of the 4 space anchors was empty. At least, this space anchor cannot be dispatched until the main body of the Ark is repaired. It comes in handy. Kaylan and the others never expected that this space anchor would appear here. What should we do? Can we break free? The Hound asked anxiously. It's difficult, old dog. Do you know that in order to save energy, the space anchor on the Ark usually only maintains 1 to 2% of its output power, but now, it is obvious that we are facing a fully powered one. Space Anchor Layton curled his lips and laughed angrily. Even if a Gunaktoll is equipped with a jump engine, even if the remaining energy is enough for a Gunaktoll to start the jump engine, we can't escape. I suspect that the Space Anchor was originally created to counter the jump technology. Now using it to deal with us, hey, it's like using a cannon to kill mosquitoes. However, Layton suddenly changed the subject. To maintain a full power space anchor, the energy consumption must be an astronomical figure. As long as we can persist until the energy supply of this space anchor is insufficient, this cage will naturally disappear. How long will this take? Zofia asked. It's hard to say. It could be as little as 3 to 5 days, or more, maybe 10 days and a half a month. Layton shrugged. 3 to 5 days, even if the immortal crew does not send follow-up troops to attack us, this time is enough to build a permanent energy supply line connecting the Ark. By then, this space anchor will probably be gone for 10 days and a half, let alone 10 days and a half. It won't be a problem for us to be locked here for a whole year. The Hound frowned. We must find a way to break through it as quickly as possible. Breaking through the space anchor, It sounds easy to say, as if you stepped on the accelerator and rushed out, but in fact. Leighton worked hard towards the virtual console in front of him. I had already turned the accelerator just now. The position has been pushed to forward 4, which is 15% of the speed of light, but Yagonactor is still motionless. Leighton continued, now only the jump engine has not been tried, but the remaining energy of Yagonactor is not enough to start it. P.S. Thanks to the bit player and book friend 2021030110410836350 who can't survive for 3 minutes for the 1500 starting coins. P.P.S. I expect to take a leave of absence next Monday or Tuesday. It has been exactly 2 years since the treatment was completed. It has been half a year since the last bone puncture re-examination. I have to go for another re-examination, and recently I have been having headaches, although the doctor and I both agree that it was due to cervical spondylosis, but for safety reasons a lumbar puncture had to be done. Yes, it was the inspiration for the nerve connection of the blasphemer's mecha to pierce the spine in the book, and the cerebrospinal fluid was checked. Bone puncture can be done on the go. After lumbar puncture, you have to lie down for 6 hours, and you will probably have to stay in the hospital overnight. As for whether to take 1 day off or 2 days off, it depends on the arrangements for the day, and will be notified separately. Alien Relic Hunter. Author, Enchenmi-san. Chapter 861. Kaylan. You should be able to hear it, right? The hound raised his head and shouted loudly, we are trapped and can't escape at all. Isn't that thing you just released from the coffin very powerful? It can be done with one move after destroying that fleet. Can this guy break through this damn space anchor? I don't know why, but it seems that the Joker was down because of too much consumption just now. I can't control it for the time being, Kaylan said. Although Joker seemed to have just raised his arm carelessly, only Kaylan, the controller, knew how terrifying the price he had to pay was. At that moment, his mental power was almost drained. Had it not been for the support of the spear turned into a living armor, he would have fallen to his knees on the ground. After his mental power was almost exhausted, the connection between Kaylan and Joker and Yagonactor also became extremely weak. Fortunately, he had handed over control of the battleship to the hounds before, otherwise, in his current state, he really can't make Yagonactor move. Isn't it? The chain is off at this critical moment, Hound shouted with some annoyance, spitting hard at his feet. Then do you know how long it will take for that guy to recover? We can't do it without relying on his ability. Escaped. At least. Kaylan estimated in his mind, 6 to 8 hours. Generally speaking, it is impossible to recover from this level of consumption without a day and night's rest. But just after Kaylan controlled Joker and used that trick, Ze-Luo obviously saw that his mental power had been exhausted. Took the initiative to walk behind Kaylan, stretched out his arms and hugged him. The next second, Ze-Luo once again transformed from the form of a Sanwu girl into an armor. However, unlike the previous combat-style armor, the armor transformed this time mainly covered K-Ian's head and spine. The tiny tentacles pierced K-Ian's skin and muscles, reaching deep into the spine and cerebral cortex, directly fusing each other's consciousness together in a physical connection. Ze-Luo is like a power bank, helping Kaylan quickly recover his overdrawn mental power, but even so, it will take at least 6 hours to recover to the point where he can control Joker again. Fleet 0, Betelgeuse Heavy Cruiser, Medical Room Number 4. I don't need a bandage, I'm not injured. Jaeger opened the side of the medical staff and used his other hand to support the edge of the stretcher bed, trying to turn it down, but the severe pain from behind still shook his body. He lost his balance and fell heavily face down to the ground with a snap. Although Jaeger was extremely lucky to have passed through the fighting airspace and landed on the ground, it would be a bit exaggerated to say that he was unscathed. According to the image on the scanner, there were at least 3 persons, large and small, inside Jaeger's body. More than a dozen metal fragments were not removed, and the impact of landing on the ground caused multiple fractures, bone cracks, and countless muscle contusions all over the body. The most serious injury was undoubtedly after the ejection. A piece of debris ejected from the cockpit explosion penetrated directly through his right thigh, but he was very lucky to avoid the aorta on his thigh, otherwise, he would have to wait until Fleet Zero when the search and rescue team found Yeager. He was probably already dead from excessive bleeding. There are no serious life-threatening injuries, but there are countless minor injuries all over the body. Perhaps it is because of the crazy adrenaline secreted during the battle, or perhaps because of the huge sadness when a close comrade died. At that time, Yeager didn't notice his injuries at all, and didn't even do the most basic emergency treatment. In fact, when the search and rescue team found him, Yeager's consciousness was already on the edge of confusion, and the emergency medical kit distributed to each fighter pilot was still placed in the mezzanine at the bottom of the seat. Not touched. In the original words of the officer from the search and rescue team, this guy doesn't want to live anymore. Even if the wreckage of a fighter jet falls from the sky towards where he is standing, he probably won't move his steps. It wasn't until Yeager was sent to the medical room of Betelgeuse that he received a blood transfusion, a large amount of electrolyte fluid, and 2 injections of boosters, before his consciousness was pulled back from the edge of semi-coma. But as soon as Yeager regained consciousness, he kicked away the medical soldier who was helping him remove the metal fragment embedded in his leg. "The battle is over, Colonel Yeager," a second lieutenant standing at the door shouted with a frown. "We have successfully withdrawn from the combat airspace, and the enemy has not caught up. Please cooperate with the medical staff. This ship has received a large number of disabled personnel, and the medical department is already a bit overwhelmed." "The battle is over? What did you say?" Yeager's eyes widened. "We escaped." "It's not an escape, it's an order from Yagonactor to retreat," the second lieutenant explained. "Isn't that just running away? Is there any difference between leaving Yagonactor there and us, the warships responsible for escorting us, to retreat on our own and running away?" Yeager spat and cursed. "It's the order from Yagonactor," the second lieutenant emphasized again with an accent. "Since we have to withdraw, what are we going to fight in the first place? Huh? Is our fighting meaningful? So many people, and Hans, what's the point of their sacrifices?" Yeager said angrily. "Let me, ouch, give me a wheelchair, I'm going to the hangar." "Colonel Yeager, please calm down." The second lieutenant paused and then said, "If you want to go back to fight, then I can tell you that the unidentified Black Fleet has been destroyed." "What?" The anger on Yeager's face froze, and slowly turned into shock, muttering to himself, "The Black Fleet was wiped out? How is it possible?" "No, it is possible, if it is as for Yagonactor, let alone 1 Black Fleet, even 10. Actually." Seeing that Yeager's mood seemed to have stabilized, the second lieutenant's expression and tone also softened. He came closer and lowered his voice and said to Yeager, "The Black Fleet was destroyed by 1 person. Alone." Yeager's eyes suddenly widened. "Are you kidding me? It's just a person, many people have seen it. It's unmistakable." Speaking of this matter, the second lieutenant's face also had a very complicated expression. That person suddenly appeared in the air, raised his hand, and held a black. The fleet was photographed directly on the ground. The officers and soldiers were secretly spreading the news. At this point, the second lieutenant suddenly stopped as if he remembered something. "What are you passing on? Are you going to continue talking?" Yeager asked anxiously. "This is just a private rumor. Colonel, don't take it seriously, and don't tell the captain." The ensign warned first, and then continued after seeing Yeager nodding, "The officers and soldiers are all here. Said that that person is not a human at all, but a super weapon created by the superiors using the Alpha civilization, possessing the power of gods. The power of gods refers to the great god that the Alpha people believe in." Yeager frowned. "Could it be that you were mistaken? It was Yagona who destroyed that Black Fleet. But the weapon on Thor, that person just happened to make an action at that time. Then we don't know. Anyway, there was no movement on Yagonactor's ship at that time. Even our energy detector did not detect any energy fluctuations around Yagonactor. On the contrary, that person. What happened to that guy? When the monitoring instruments selected that person as the target, all the instruments malfunctioned at the same time. I heard that the situation on the flagship was even more serious. Almost half of the external monitors were scrapped. The second lieutenant lowered his voice even more. It's low, it cannot be observed, cannot be spied on, it sounds like it is inseparable from those mysterious things. Yeager knew very well that those mysterious things mentioned by the second lieutenant were referring to the great gods believed in by the Alpha civilization. If the second lieutenant hadn't made up a story to fool himself, then the suspect of this mysterious man who suddenly appeared would indeed be much greater than that of Gunnaketer. "Have you taken any photos of that figure?" Yeager asked again. "Yes, but there is only a back view, and it's not very clear." The second lieutenant glanced at the medical soldier next to him, and used his eyes to signal the other person to take advantage of this opportunity to insert the infusion needle that Yeager had just pulled out into him, and at the same time, he took the infusion needle from his pocket. Lee took out his phone and opened a photo. Yeager leaned his head closer and saw an extremely blurry photo on the screen. It seemed to have been taken through the porthole with a mobile phone. Even if it was enlarged to the maximum extent, no details could be seen clearly. Only a figure could be seen floating directly above Yagonactor, and he seemed to be wrapped in something that was not sure whether it was a robe or a blanket. It is not a surprising thing in this era that people can float in the air. Whether it is an anti-gravity device or a micropropulsion device, some specially modified people equipped with flight modules can even do what Iron Man does in the movie. Flying freely in the air without relying on any equipment other than battle armor. "What about the Black Fleet?" Yeager asked again. The ensign's finger swiped across the screen to the next photo. "I saw that the powerful fleet that originally suppressed the Zero Fleet throughout the fight, giving Yeager a feeling that he could not defeat it, has been embedded on the ground in this overhead photo. The 2,000-meter-long fleet, the nearly 3,000-meter-long aircraft carrier battleship, was even broken into 4 parts, and raging smoke shot straight into the sky." "Wait a minute, switch back to the previous photo," Yeager said suddenly. "Oh, okay." Although the second lieutenant was a little puzzled, considering that Yeager was finally willing to calm down and receive treatment, it was hard to refuse his request. Anyway, it was just a photo. If he wanted to see it, let him see it. It's better than letting him continue to make trouble. Although the command above has issued an order prohibiting the dissemination of any relevant information, Colonel Yeager is also a member of the Zero Fleet. These photos have been circulated wildly on the fleet's internal network. Basically, the Zero Fleet, all the officers and soldiers have seen it, including Colonel Yeager. Huh, staring at the back in the photo, Yeager couldn't help but let out a soft sigh. Although this back figure is only a few pixels in size, for some reason it always gives Yeager a very familiar feeling. It was as if he had seen this person before somewhere. No, it's not like, he must have seen this person, and more than once. "Can you send me the photo?" Yeager said. "This shouldn't violate the rules, right?" "Logically speaking, it's not possible. The higher UPS have already banned the spread of it." The second lieutenant hesitated. "But Colonel, as long as you don't tell anyone, there won't be a big problem. Not to mention him, a young second lieutenant in the logistics department, even the medical soldiers next to him who were helping Yeager treat his wounds already knew about this. There were so many witnesses that this was nothing at all. Confidential information. Okay, please send it to my personal communication terminal." Yeager had already made a decision in his mind. When he had the opportunity to return to the Ark, he would ask his technical officer friend who worked in the military information department to see if he could adjust the sharpness of the photo. "If you can zoom in a little more and get more details and information, maybe you can recall where you saw this back figure." At this moment, the red alarm light installed above the door frame of the medical room suddenly turned on, and the alarm sounded, "This ship will enter the first level of combat readiness immediately. All personnel please be prepared." Level 1 combat readiness status. Yeager was stunned for a moment. Didn't it mean that we have withdrawn from the combat airspace? And the Black Fleet has also been eliminated? What is going on? Wait a minute, the order from above has just been passed down, let me take a look. The second lieutenant himself was also confused. He took the phone back and quickly pressed a few times on the screen. The next second, the second lieutenant's body froze and his face gradually turned pale. "What's going on?" Yeager urged. "You should speak." News just came from the flagship, saying that Yagonactor confirmed the mutiny, and asked Fleet Zero to immediately carry out pursuit and interception missions. "Our battleship is also in the combat sequence," the second lieutenant said in a trembling voice. The voice said, "What did you say? Are you not mistaken?" Yeager took out his ears hard. He thought for a time that he had heard wrongly. Yagonactor rebelled? Why? Because of the man who just asked us to retreat, an order? But wasn't the Black Fleet wiped out? I don't know. The second lieutenant shook his head like a rattle. "Anyway, the order from above says so. Colonel, do you know what this means?" "What?" "Not only do we need to fight Yagonactor, we also have to face the thing that just wiped out the entire Black Fleet with one hand." You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Alien Relic Hunter. Author, Chenmi-san. Chapter 862. I don't think this is the key. Yeager shook his head. Don't you find it strange? Just now, we were fighting to protect Yagonactor, and now we are actually being asked to turn our guns to attack ourselves. The object of protection? I have been a soldier for so many years, and I have never heard such an order. Maybe Yagonactor really rebelled, the second lieutenant muttered with a hint of doubt. So, that Black Fleet is a rebellion suppression force from Ark? But if that's the case, why didn't we receive any notification in advance, not even a so-called secret order? There was something hidden in Yeager's words. With a hint of sullenness, have you ever thought about what is waiting for us if the people on Yagonactor don't let us retreat? Yes. Before the second lieutenant could tell him the answer, Yeager asked and answered himself, the whole army was annihilated. Ahem, Colonel, please keep your voice down. The second lieutenant looked back at the door of the medical room with a worried look, and then lowered his voice and said to Yeager, questioning the orders above is. So what if you have doubts? When we were fighting the Black Fleet, did the people above think about us? Yeager said angrily, if this was a game of chess, we wouldn't even have a pawn crossing the river. Not really. If the group of people on Yagonactor hadn't asked us to withdraw from the war zone, I'm afraid we would have been labeled as traitors after we died in the battle. As for our families, let alone pensions and subsidies, I'm lucky that I haven't been implicated or held accountable for this. The second lieutenant had a dull expression on his face. He wanted to say something to refute Yeager, but found that he couldn't say anything. What Yeager said was absolutely correct. Including them, the entire Zero fleet was a chess piece that could be discarded and sacrificed in the original plan. In order not to alarm the rebels on Yagonactor, let alone beforehand, no retreat order was issued to Fleet Zero even during the battle. The entire Zero fleet was regarded as part of the rebels by Ark's top brass, but Yeager dared to say that until now, the vast majority of the Zero fleet had not figured out what happened. On the contrary, it was those people whom Admiral Yagonactor identified as rebels who gave Fleet Zero a way out and allowed them to withdraw from the battlefield, so that they would not be reduced to cannon fodder and be used in a meaningless battle. An abandoned child crushed into dust on the battlefield. But now, the Black Fleet that performed the suppression mission was wiped out by the rebels. The upper management of Ark, which had originally decided to abandon Fleet Zero, remembered them at this time, remembered that their missile was destroyed by the rebels. The saved abandoned children allowed them to turn around and deal with the so-called rebels to complete the mission of the enemy that originally belonged to Fleet Zero. Have the top management of ARC really treated people like themselves, as adults? Yeager couldn't help but have doubts in his heart. Second Lieutenant, have you ever heard of a Chinese proverb from the old era? Yeager suddenly asked. What? The second lieutenant obviously didn't realize what Yeager meant. Those who have gained the right will have many helpers. Yeager paused, but those who have lost the right will have few helpers. Colonel Yeager, although I don't understand what you are talking about. The second lieutenant looked back at the door more frequently, but I always feel that you seem to be saying something very dangerous. I don't know if Yagunactor is really rebelling, but now, Before Colonel Yeager finished speaking, the second lieutenant had already covered his mouth. Colonel, stop talking, there are people from the Security Bureau on the ship. Before he finished speaking, 3 Security Bureau agents in gray uniforms had already walked in from outside. The expressions of the 3 of them were serious, and they had obviously heard the conversation inside in the corridor. Yegor Novikov, captain of the Air Combat Unit of the Zero Fleet Betelgeuse heavy cruiser, with the rank of colonel. That's right, the leading agent said in a cold tone. As for what you just said, we have recorded it. So, Yeager pushed away the second lieutenant, who looked frightened, and looked at the Security Bureau agent without fear. What do you want to do with me? Logically speaking, you should be brought back to the Security Bureau headquarters for interrogation immediately, but considering that Fleet Zero and this ship are about to carry out a combat mission, I decided to detain you in the confinement room on the ship until the combat mission is completed. Again. Wait a minute. The second lieutenant quickly stood between the 2 of them and reached out to stop the Security Bureau agent who was trying to come up to get someone. Major Yeager was seriously injured in the previous battle. He must stay here for treatment. If you are worried, you can leave someone here to watch him. I guarantee that he will not do anything that violates the regulations. After saying that, the second lieutenant turned his head sideways and blinked hard at Yeager several times. But, I don't think Colonel Yeager will stay here for treatment with peace of mind. The agent pushed the second lieutenant away and walked towards Yeager. Even the medical soldier who wanted to stop him was stopped. He kicked him to the ground. But just when the agent wanted to reach out and grab Yeager's arm, Yeager suddenly kicked him in the face, and then a carp jumped out of the stretcher. The newly sutured wound on his back burst open again, and the oozing blood immediately stained the sterile suit Yeager was wearing. However, he seemed to feel no pain at all, and his movements were not affected at all. He quickly grabbed aside and pushed it. There was a large syringe in the car used for dispensing medicine. He took off the cover on the needle and plunged it into the arm of the Security Bureau agent. Aha! The arm was pierced by a thick needle, and the agent immediately let out a scream, stumbled back a few steps, pulled out the pistol from his waist, and pointed it at Yeager, who was about to pounce. At this moment, the second lieutenant who was pushed away stopped in front of him. The second lieutenant wanted to reach out to grab the gun, but the security agent pulled the trigger without hesitation, and the huge gunshot echoed in the infirmary. Crimson blood slowly spread on the second lieutenant's waist and abdomen. The second lieutenant covered the wound with both hands and glanced at the Security Bureau agent who fired the shot in disbelief, and then fell to the ground. "Damn you!" Yeager yelled angrily, and slammed directly into the arms of the Security Bureau agent. First, he hit the opponent's chest with a powerful elbow, and then snatched him away. After passing the opponent's gun, which was released due to being hit in the chest, he turned the gun, pointed it at the chest of the Security Bureau agent, and fired 3 shots in a row. Bah! 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 The 2 fell heavily to the ground together, and a security agent behind him was about to draw his gun, but a medic sneaked behind him and knocked him unconscious with a folding stool. In the blink of an eye, only the last and youngest of the 3 Security Bureau agents who walked into the infirmary was left. From the inconspicuous silver chrome-plated copper button on his collar, we can tell that this is only a trainee agent in the internship period. Note, the decorative copper buttons on the collars of official uniforms of the Security Bureau agents are in primary copper color, while trainee agents who have not yet passed the internship period are in chrome-plated silver. In addition, it is generally difficult to identify a security guard from his clothing and decorations bureau agent's position and rank. Yeager raised his head from the arms of the killed agent, his blood-stained face looking a little ferocious. He raised his gun, pointed the black muzzle at the last trainee agent, and whispered, "Since you heard the conversation between me and the second lieutenant, so you should also know very well what mission the superiors asked us to perform, right?" But this is an order." The trainee agent stuttered, "No matter what the orders from above are, we must obey." "Why?" Yeager looked directly into his eyes and asked again. Because, obeying orders, the military, is our duty." This trainee agent originally wanted to say that obeying orders is the duty of soldiers, but after thinking about it, it seems that their security bureau does not, because he did not belong to the military. He changed his words to "we." "No, you are wrong," Yeager whispered. "Our bounden duty is to protect the humans on the Ark and protect the only remaining fire of human civilization in this universe, rather than obey those damn orders." What do you want to do?" The trainee agent's words became increasingly unclear. "Since the senior management has determined that Yagonactor is a traitor, then as Yagonactor's escort fleet, we are certainly considered rebels. Wasn't that the case when the Black Fleet attacked earlier?" Yeager said with a half-smile. "In my opinion, at least the people on Yagonactor have left us a way to survive, and the higher UPS of Ark have never cared about our life or death." "You want to rebel?" the trainee agent exclaimed. He said these 4 words very neatly, but as soon as he finished speaking, Yeager had already pulled the trigger. Bang! Yeager did not shoot the trainee agent, but simply knocked off the holster hanging on his waist, and then said to the medic, "Tie these 2 guys up, and hurry up and rescue the second lieutenant." Several medical soldiers immediately swarmed over and tied up the trainee agent and another agent who was knocked unconscious. However, the medical soldier who went to check on the second lieutenant turned around, shook his head at Yeager and said, "The area that was shot was the pancreas, the amount of bleeding was huge. Even if we are sent to the medical cabin now, we would already be." At this point, the medical soldier sighed and did not continue. Yeager cursed in a calm tone, but the calmer he acted at the moment, the more intense the anger accumulated in his heart. He glanced at the body of the Security Bureau agent, and his chest was 0. He was shot 3 times, 2 through the lungs and 1 in the heart. He was already dead and could no longer die. "Gray-skinned dog, no, you are worse than a dog," Yeager whispered. "At least a dog can distinguish between who is nice to it and who just wants to eat its meat." "Colonel Yeager, what should we do now?" After the 2 security agents were tied up and stuffed with large bags of hemostatic cotton in their mouths, several medical soldiers looked at Colonel Yeager. Yeager was the only survivor of the Betelgeuse Air Combat Unit. The other pilots who attacked did not even have the chance to return to the mothership for treatment. The injured treated by the Betelgeuse cruiser were basically others. They were transferred from the broken battleship, and all of these people were injured in the battle with the Black Fleet. Several people failed to hold on during the transfer, and after arriving at Rigel, many wounded people died of serious injuries because they could not get a place in the medical cabin. These soldiers who died one by one, these medical soldiers all see it in your eyes. The medical soldiers of Fleet Zero are also veterans drawn from various war zones. They have seen no fewer deaths than the combat troops, or even more, but such a meaningless sacrifice, anyone who sees it will feel in their heart it's not the same taste. What's more, they see it from the perspective of one of the parties involved, not a bystander. What Colonel Yeager said is absolutely correct. Ark's senior management didn't regard them as human beings at all. They, and even the entire Zero fleet, were just tools that could come and go when called upon. Moreover, it is a tool that was originally abandoned by the owner, but now the new tool is broken and the owner picked it up from the trash can. But they are people, living people, not mindless tools. I will disobey the order, Yeager said decisively. I will not carry out such an order. But if you disobey, you will be considered a traitor, a female medical soldier worried. We have been regarded as a mutinous unit before. Yeager looked at the medical soldier who spoke, and then pointed at the corpse that was placed in the corner of the medical room and covered with white cloth and had not been disposed of. Otherwise, why do you think they were killed? By whom? The female medical soldier bit her lips and said no more. What's more, what is before us now is obviously a death mission. P.S. Thanks to book friend 20220410100222954 for the 500 starting coin reward, thanks to Wong Bukwan and Ye 100 reading coins as a reward from Piao Ling. Well, the last two seem to have rewarded through other channels. I don't know why I didn't display the rewards on other channels in the backend before, but now they occasionally show up. But for non-Kidian platform or iOS users it's better not to tip as much as possible. The proportion of money the author can get is very low. If you really want to tip, you should use Kidian's own platform. If iOS users want to tip, please use the PC version. If you find it troublesome, just don't tip at all. Why not add some tea, egg, instant noodles and some ham sausage for breakfast? As long as it can support genuine subscription, no matter which platform it is, the author will be satisfied. Alien Relic Hunter. Author, Chen San. Chapter 863. However, we have no way to stop the entire fleet, even if you, Colonel, can convince the captain. As long as we show disobedience, we will probably be sunk by the surrounding friendly ships first, right? Another, the famous doctor and soldier, said. At least, I don't want to be used as a weapon by those people anymore. Yeager found several injections of stimulants, painkillers, and the like on the cart nearby, and poured them on himself regardless of the situation. While pricking, he said to these medical soldiers, "You go to the lifeboat first and wait. If the situation changes, immediately escape in the lifeboat without any hesitation. I think even if the people on other battleships want to continue, if you work for the Ark, you won't be so crazy as to open fire on an unarmed lifeboat." "What about you?" the medic asked. "I'm going to find the captain." Yeager threw the empty syringe on the ground, crushed it with his foot, and then limped toward the bridge. At the same time, on the Zero Fleet flagship New Dawn, Rear Admiral Alexander also received several urgent messages. More than one warship questioned the order from above and asked Rear Admiral Alexander, as the commander, to review the order. Verify. Verification. How can I verify this? Major General Alexander rested his elbows on the edge of the table, held his forehead with both hands, and shook his head with a wry smile. Do they still think there is room for change in this matter? Noah's Ark, core area, secret room. Apollo's virtual projection lowered his head, as if he was looking at something. After a while, he spoke. According to the report of the Security Bureau agents stationed in the Zero Fleet, it seems that officers and soldiers from many battleships have appeared. Tendency to mutiny. Mutiny. Zeus was startled at first, and then a look of disdain showed on his face. This can only show that Fleet Zero is not loyal enough. It was the mistake of the person who was responsible for the screening work. No, I don't think it has anything to do with the person in charge of screening. Apollo shook his head. Normal people will question the decision-making level above after experiencing something like this, not to mention, we are asking them to implement it now, is a mission that is almost fatal. What does it mean to be nearly killed? Didn't I tell the commander of Fleet Zero that that ability cannot be used again in a short time? Even a completely deified body is still based on a human body and can withstand it. Such a powerful force is already very reluctant. What's more, the person controlling him at the moment is just immortal. Maybe the guy in the Babel Tower has his brain bursting at the moment. You have to prepare for the worst in everything, Apollo said. Besides, the commander of Fleet Zero may not necessarily believe what you say. That's simple. First let the agents of the Security Bureau arrest those who spread mutinous remarks, and then set a time limit for the captains of each ship, well, just 30 seconds. If they do it after 30 seconds, if they refuse to perform the mission, they will be directly deprived of control of the battleship, and the core mastermind will conduct remote control, Zeus said. Things can't be that simple. Apollo glanced at Zeus with an annoyed look. The agents on several battleships have been eliminated by officers and soldiers, the remaining battleships are basically in a state of confrontation. The number and firepower of those agents alone will not be enough once a conflict does occur. The most important thing is that the attitude of the captains of each ship and the commander of Fleet Zero, Alexander, has not been clear yet, but at least there is one thing is for sure, they did not use the Marine Corps to suppress those who were making trouble. If this continues, we are very likely to force out a rebel army, the third voice said. This voice can only be heard, but not seen. There is not even a virtual projection, it is like a ghost hiding in the darkness. Rebels will be rebels. Anyway, we can take back control of those battleships at any time, but if a gun actor is really allowed to escape with a completely deified body, you should all know the consequences, Zeus said solemnly. He said, if everything could go according to plan, it would not have developed to this point, but now that things have happened, we can only take remedial measures as much as possible. Fleet Zero, flagship, New Dawn. Looking at the 30-second countdown that appeared on the screen, Major General Alexander's face twitched slightly. Then, as if he had made an important decision, he gritted his teeth hard and turned off the power of the monitor in front of him. Soldier! Give me the gun, Major General Alexander growled. The guard standing at the bridge entrance was stunned for half a second, but he still threw the assault rifle in his hand to Major General Alexander. Rear Admiral Alexander took the gun, quickly opened the safety, pulled the bolt, loaded the bullet, and shouted, "Attention, all ships, we are about to make an emergency landing, prepare to withstand the impact." After saying that, Major General Alexander picked up his assault rifle and fired at the central control computer of the New Dawn. However, the power of this assault rifle was not enough to destroy the central control computer of the New Dawn. It could only leave a bullet mark on the outer shell. Instead, it triggered the alarm device inside the ship, and a harsh alarm sounded immediately. When he got up, the color of the lights in the bridge also changed to a dazzling red. Warning! The central control computer is under attack and the bridge is invaded. Please eliminate the intruders immediately. Warning! The central control computer is under attack and the bridge is invaded. Please eliminate the intruders immediately. Everyone, stay away from the central control computer. Hurry! There are still 20 seconds left. Alexander turned his gun and pointed it at the surveillance cameras and large screens in the ship, and fired. Is there a bomb? Give it to me. Yes, the guard finally realized the commander's intention. He didn't even hand the bomb to Alexander. Instead, he ran over, twisted several clay bombs together 2 by 2, twisted them into a twist, and inserted them into the ground. Put on the detonator and stick it on the surface of the central control computer. 10 seconds left, hurry up, Rear Admiral Alexander roared, this battleship is about to be taken over by the people above. The fuse has been set. It will explode in 10 seconds, the soldier quickly retreated, climbed along the steps to the edge of the bridge, found a console as a cover, and squatted down. Seeing this, Major General Alexander also dropped the gun in his hand and squatted behind the chair. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. A huge explosion came from the direction of the central control computer. The lights and screens inside the bridge suddenly went out, and the entire New Dawn shook violently, and then began to fall towards the ground. Inside the bridge, the floor had tilted to an angle of nearly 45 degrees. Rear Admiral Alexander firmly grasped the guardrail surrounding the back of the chair. At the same time, he reached out to lift the cover under the console and twisted the inside of the cover. A key-shaped switch. This is the emergency switch that releases the airbag. It has a purely mechanical transmission structure and can be used even after the electronic control system of the new Dawn is completely paralyzed. After Major General Alexander turned the switch, a large number of airbags immediately popped out from all corners of the bridge, wrapping the officers and soldiers in the bridge. After nearly 5 minutes of non-free fall, the new Dawn finally hit the ground heavily, but the damage to the battleship itself was not serious. The battleship's own power system and anti-gravity device did not fail, only it's just that the central control calculator was damaged. Although the unbalanced battleship cannot continue to hover in the air, it can at least complete the emergency landing through manual operation. Don't check the damage to the battleship yet. Check to see if anyone is injured first. Also, find a way to restore the communication device, and then send a communication request to Yagonactor. Major General Alexander got through the gap in the airbag. He came out and ordered. The battleship's communication device has been completely destroyed, a technical officer reported, but I have a way. I can contact Yagonactor. What can we do? Major General Alexander asked hurriedly. Time is running against time for them now. From the moment they decide to disobey the order, the follow-up troops sent by the Immortal crew will probably be on the way. No, the follow-up force should have already set off when the Black Fleet was destroyed. The only role of Fleet Zero was to delay time. But now, in addition to dealing with Yagonactor, the follow-up troops also have an additional task, to clean up the rebellious Fleet Zero. The fighters and mechas in the hangar all have communication devices, but the power is not high enough. We only need to install a simple signal amplifier on them to contact Yagonactor, said the technical officer. But the problem is that the frequency bands of the communication devices of fighters and mechas are locked. Unless the mothership gives permission, it is impossible to communicate with unauthorized units. I just took a look at the identification friend or foe sequence before the central control computer was decommissioned. Yagonactor has been identified as an enemy unit, and the communication devices of the vehicles in the hangar should have been updated. Unless we can restart the central control computer, it will be impossible to use these. The communication device has contacted Yagonactor. The officer in charge of communications shook his head repeatedly. No, we can use the public channel, the technical officer who made the suggestion said loudly. Anyway, the matter is at this point, there is nothing to hide anymore. Just use the public channel to ask for help from Yagonactor. I think they shouldn't say no. That's it? Let's do it quickly, Major General Alexander said. Every second of delay, our chance of survival will drop by 1 point. When the new Dawn chose to self-destruct, the other warships of Fleet Zero also rioted at almost the same time, or in other words, an uprising. However, the control rights of those battleships that did not have time to destroy the central control computer were all taken back by the core master brain of ARC. Only a small number of models were older, and the control rights of small battleships that the central control computer could not directly connect to the core master brain of ARC were taken back. Still in the hands of the captains. But just when these small warships tried to escape, those warships controlled by the core mastermind opened fire on them without hesitation. In the face of the powerful firepower of the heavy cruisers, these small light ships simply could not last long, and the energy protection, the shields were broken instantly, the armor was penetrated and melted, and flames and explosions immediately filled the interior of these battleships. Many people were reduced to ashes before they even reacted. In the battle with the Black Fleet, Fleet Zero only lost 2 battleships. But now, in just a few seconds, more than a dozen light battleships were destroyed by friendly forces. The officers and soldiers on the controlled battleships quickly reacted. Some of the battleships followed the example of the new Dawn and blew up their own central control computers, while others on the battleships chose to abandon the ship. New Dawn, bridge. The temporary signal amplifier has been set up. With this power, not to mention Yagonactor, even the Ark can receive it, the technical officer reported to Alexander. Okay, I understand. Alexander took the phone, thought for a moment, and then told everything that happened without reservation. Inside Yagonactor, the core power room. Old dog, I just received the public frequency communication from Fleet Zero. Layton said to the Hound. The Ark, or the guys from the Immortal Crew Association, have publicly announced that we have rebelled. Fleet Zero also received it. Intercept our order. However, almost all officers and soldiers of Fleet Zero, including Commander Major General Alexander, decided to disobey the order and revolt on the spot. Control of some battleships of Fleet Zero has been taken back by Ark, while some battleships have chosen self-destruction. Now they are asking us for immediate support and to find ways to rescue and contain the revolting troops. An uprising. Hound was stunned for a moment, although I have also thought about this possibility, and I have even almost done this myself, but I always feel that it may be a trap. It's not a trap. Layton selected several scenes of surveillance footage from outside Yagonactor and moved them in front of the Hound. In the footage, most of the warships had crash-landed to the ground, and only a few were left. The warships that were not under human control were still suspended in the air, and were pouring firepower towards the warships, making an emergency landing and the lifeboats in the air. This doesn't look like a trap. Zwilligito said, to be honest, if I were a member of Fleet Zero, I wouldn't want to sacrifice my life for the undead crew anymore. I really want to rescue them, but the problem is that now we ourselves are also mud Buddhas crossing the river. We can't protect ourselves. The Hound walked back and forth a little irritably. If we don't break through the space anchor, let alone rescue the uprising Zero, the fleet is gone. We can't even move if we want to.